South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Well, something to think about, for sure.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
Well, that didn't go so well on a Sunday. The Eagles lose to the Kansas City Chiefs 42-30, kind of a back-and-forth game. I think the Eagles were in it a little longer than many of us anticipated, but we got a lot to break down and discuss here on another day where the Eagles' defense is carved up like Thanksgiving dinner. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is producing today's show. And you out there, what's going on, my friends? On a Sports Bash Monday, we've got a lot to dive into. I want to get into all the particulars early because I got a lot of thoughts on this game. Now, normally on a Sunday, you're all amped up and ready to go. I was kind of melancholy yesterday. In fact, I did something that I generally would never do on an Eagles football Sunday. I actually went to the beach and took my laptop to the beach and watched the game on my laptop from the beautiful 82-degree weather on the beach in Ventnor yesterday. I said, you know what? I am not letting this team, which, listen, I don't have a lot of expectations for, right? So I'm not going to sit in misery every Sunday watching a team that I really just don't have a lot of expectations for. I don't have a standard that I'm holding this team to. So with that, I decided, you know what? It's a beautiful day. I'm going to take advantage of the beautiful day, and I'm going to head down to the beach, and I'll watch the game down there. So we brought the laptop down. I had 3 jetpacks all charged up and ready to go so that we had Wi-Fi all day long. We had my laptop. We had my buddy's iPad. So we were all ready to go. We had a table. We had something to put the laptop on. We had an umbrella to keep the sun out so we could see the screen. I mean, it was just a fantastic way to absorb the Eagles game. Now, we're watching the game yesterday down there, and, you know, we're cheering, oh, touchdown, sack, fumble, grab that ball. People are looking at us like, oh, my God, what a great idea. These guys brought the damn laptops down. Well, in the end, all I did was left frustrated. Why? This was a game that you had a shot to win. Again. And what is the difference right now between where you are? And look, Kansas City is a Super Bowl contender, although not with that defense. That defense is not very good. Like, if you were to look at some positives, and we'll do 3 up, 3 down at 340 today, you know, the Eagles had a lot of ups. I mean, I could have come up with more than 3 ups. I picked my top 3, but some guys played pretty well, and they're mostly on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Jalen Hurts had maybe one of his better games as a starting quarterback, made plays. Devonta Smith over 100 yards for the first time as a NFL player. You had, I thought, the offensive line, for the fact that they were 4/5 of their offensive line down already. I thought the offensive line played pretty well, considering. You know, before the game, I was getting ready. I'm packing up to go to the beach. And then the Eagles inactive list came out. And I'm thinking, they haven't really had anybody on the inactive list that's been, you know, pretty earth-shattering. Well, sure enough, Lane Johnson was deemed inactive today or yesterday. Earlier in the morning, they had announced that Nate Herbig was going to play Jack Driscoll was going to play right guard, and that Lane Johnson, much that I kind of described all week long. I said, I think they'll move Landon Dickerson to left guard, and they'll play Herbig at right guard. Well, it wasn't Herbig, it was Driscoll that was going to start at right guard. Well, then when Johnson went out, they had to move Driscoll out to right tackle and play Herbig at right guard. Now, Driscoll had just got activated from the 21-day window and had been practicing at right guard all week long. Well, hours before the game started, they had to say to him, hey, you're going to go kick out and play right tackle. That being said, I thought they did a pretty good job on the line. So I thought the offensive line did a pretty good job considering. I thought the coach, right, the play caller, Nick Sirianni, I thought he called a much better game That's not saying much next to the 2 games he called previously. That said, I thought he did a much better job of getting the ball in his playmakers' hands. Like, I thought he did a good job. They used the tight end a lot more. I think they had 11 catches for the tight end, over 100 yards and a touchdown. I thought he did a good job. Now, they only threw the one pass to Watkins, to Rager. They had a couple of throws to Watkins. Smith got involved. They had 10 targets there. I thought they had a good pitch and catch. I thought Sirianni could have called a better game. I'm not sitting here telling you that I thought he was great yesterday. If I'm doing my Grayson's grades, I'd give him about a C, Sirianni, and probably a C minus, because quite frankly, the discipline of this team is awful. 3 touchdowns are called back. 3. And I would say 2 of the 3 penalties are really just not being disciplined. The J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, it's almost like you want to say, why the flip is he even on the field? Like, seriously. That's what frustrates you the most is if Arcega-Whiteside's out there, you know he's not going to catch a pass. You know what he's out there for. So in the red zone, why the hell is he out there? Come on, Sirianni. If I know that, don't you think Steve Spagnuolo and his defense knows that? Soon as Arcega-Whiteside, soon as I see him on the field, I say they're going to try to run something where he rubs. And he's such an idiot, he doesn't know how to do it. Why? Because he never plays. That's like the time, what was it, last year, the year before, where they put Hakeem Butler in the game to try to throw a fade pattern to him because he was, 6'8", and then they cut him the next week. Like, if Hakeem Butler's in on the goal line, I kind of understand what's about to come. You're going to throw a fade pattern to him. He's 6'8". I get it. In the red zone yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles had a shot to put up 21 extra points just because they had 21 points, 18 if you want to assume the kick wasn't going to be made, okay? They had 3 touchdowns taken off the board yesterday because of penalties. One on Arcega-Whiteside, one on Andre Dillard, which I got to be honest, that's weak sauce, NFL. You're calling that? You're really calling that? And then the play with Devonta Smith, he gets pushed out of bounds. He can't reestablish himself. And unfortunately, he catches that ball, but he's out of bounds. I mean, those are 3 penalties that all 3 of them are avoidable. All 3 of them are avoidable if you just focus. I mean, Arcega-Whiteside, get out of the play, dude. You're not a part of the play. Get the hell out of there. Arcega-Whiteside is just, it's not even benchable. It's cuttable. Cut him. Right? You make that penalty, you get, how many snaps does Arcega-Whiteside play? I know DeCecco puts out the snap counts. Let me see what he's got here. On Arcega-Whiteside, he plays 11 snaps yesterday. You really need to tell me that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside gets 11 snaps and one of them is in the most important spot on the field? It's an awful job. It's awful. There's nothing that you can tell me that, J.J. does this really well. Well, guess what? If he did it well, he didn't do it well yesterday. Because you know why? He doesn't do it well. He doesn't play enough to do it well. And that's not what his role is supposed to be. You drafted a guy in the 2nd round to be a red zone rub route runner. Get the hell out of here. Let's just throw it out on the table here, Eagles. It was a mistake. We all know it. You make mistakes. It's okay to admit you make mistakes. That's the problem they have. All of these teams, they draft guys, they make mistakes, and the fans lambaste them for it, and then they want to hold on to the guy instead of just saying, you know what, let's get this guy out of here. We made a mistake. Let's just admit it. If the Eagles just admit it, you know what, we took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. It didn't work out. It's a mistake. Let's move on. I think that people would respect them more. The problem is you try to hold on to these guys. Derek Barnett, guess what? He's not helping you. Derek Barnett's not helping you. You've had guys come through this organization, right? You've had guys here that have come through this organization in the time that Derek Barnett has been here that you let go that are helping other teams. But you have to hold on to Derek Barnett because you drafted him in the first round. And he's flashed a game here and a game there. Guess who I'd rather have? You know who I'll take over Derek Barnett? You had Steven Means here a couple of years ago. He's a guy that probably would give you just as much, if not more, than Barnett. And guess what? Barnett, the writing's on the wall. The snaps were down for him yesterday. Thank God. Except for the fact that he still figured out a way to get a bonehead penalty that led to a touchdown. 3rd down and 14, sack. Nope. He gets a penalty for roughing the passer, and they end up taking that first down and going down the field and getting points. Derek Barnett yesterday, let's see. I could have sworn I saw his snap counts go down. Yeah, he went down pretty significantly. Barnett went to 38 snaps. He only played 57% of the snaps yesterday. But the penalties just, holy mackerel. Frustration all over the place because of the penalties. The penalties are frustrating, man. Why? Because you're in this game against a team that, look, is clearly better than you. They're better than you. They are. Let's call a spade there. They're better than you. But how do you keep a game where you're not the more talented team? You can't make mistakes, man. You can't make mistakes. And look, I got text message, Vinny in Atlantic City, the absolute best way to slow down a high-powered offense, keep them off the field, run the ball. When Miles Sanders broke a big run in the third quarter, he spiked the ball down out of frustration that he's not being utilized correctly. I can't sit here and blame the offense. They didn't run the ball a whole heck of a lot, but the offense moved the ball. Would I like to keep them off the field? I get it. I totally get it. They ran the ball 19 times yesterday. 8 of those were Hurts. So what? 10, 11 times they ran the ball, and Sanders ran it 7 times for 1.9 yards per carry. So what did you say? Sanders broke a big run in the third quarter. I don't remember that. I would say Sanders' longest run yesterday was 5 yards. So I don't remember. I was going to say, I don't remember Sanders running a big one. He didn't run the ball well yesterday. He had 7 for 13. Gainwell had 3 for 31. Rieger had a jet sweep. It was 1 for 12. The longest run they had yesterday was a 13-yard run by Gainwell. They did not run the ball enough yesterday. They did not run it well. But I can't sit here and say, now I can blame the offense in the red zone. They did not do a good enough job in the red zone yesterday. They were 3 of 6 in the red zone. So 3 penalties they end up getting that took off points, and they were only 3 of 6 in the red zone yesterday. So offensively, they went toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. You scored 30 points at home in an NFL game. For God's sakes, you got to win that game. Jonathan Gannon's defense, I told you last week, he got undressed by Dak Prescott. And I don't want to say he got undressed in the game. He just doesn't have very good talent, man. The linebackers are a problem. They don't get enough pressure. Look, I'm not saying that Gannon's great, but we complained about Jim Schwartz. Are you going to complain about this guy now too? Like I tweeted out earlier today. We talked about this on Friday's show. Jonathan Gannon was a hot coaching name when he was hired. So far, the results have not been good. Are you willing to have some patience with him, or does he have enough talent? Like, what's in college football? For you college football fans out there, when you bring in a new coach, in that first year, right? That first year when that new coach comes in, you're like, oh, man, this isn't going so good. He doesn't have his recruits in there. And then by that third year, when he gets that first crew of his recruits that get out on the field, you start to see the change in what that team's going to look like. Jonathan Gannon doesn't have the personnel that he wants for the defense he wants to call, right? He doesn't really have, I would imagine. Now, Darius Slay's a nice player, although he probably should stay off social media. Steve Nelson competes. He's not great. He's just a guy. Ronnie McLeod, first game back. Anthony Harris, these guys are just good players. They don't have any all-pros back there. His linebackers are terrible. I don't want to say they're terrible. That's not fair. They're just guys. They're average. And his defensive line, that's where he wants, to butter his bread, is up front. Well, he loses Graham. Fletcher Cox is getting double-teamed almost every single play. I think I saw a stat yesterday. Let me see. Tim McManus at ESPN. Everybody's getting on Fletcher Cox. He had no stats in the game yesterday. He had absolutely no stats. He was double-teamed 15 times yesterday. On a percentage basis, he was double-teamed on 71% of pass plays. So while you're saying through 4 games, Fletcher Cox has 5 tackles, 0 for loss, and no quarterback hits, the offensive coordinator for the other team is saying, that's the guy we have to game plan for. They still feel that Fletcher Cox is a problem. So they're double teaming him almost every single time they drop back to pass. Hence, Javon Hargrave has 5 sacks. He had 6 tackles yesterday. He had a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. He had a hit on the quarterback. I mean, Javon Hargrave's playing at an unbelievable level. Well, on the flip side, everybody figures that Fletcher Cox isn't doing anything, which, is he the impact player that he was? Maybe, maybe not. But I think the other team is saying he is. He has gotten a ton of extra attention, and I'm wondering if he's getting a lot of attention because of the way the Eagles' defense is being called now by Jonathan Gannon. What are they doing? Well, you're playing your safeties 15 yards off the ball, and your linebackers aren't very good. So what are we going to do? We're going to double your best player and make your linebackers make the tackle. Well, your linebackers aren't very good, and neither are your safeties, for God's sakes. So, yeah, we'll double team your best player so that he can't make a tackle. I think you're seeing a lot of that right now. I think the offensive coordinators understand that Fletcher Cox is their best player on defense. They are trying to take him out, and they're saying your linebackers are not good enough and your safeties are not good enough. So if they want to try to win the game with you guys making tackles, we're okay with that. And then the second you want to bring those guys up, we feel like we have the advantages on your linebackers in coverage. There was a time yesterday, Kansas City's in the red zone, where they went 5 for 5. They were 9 of 10 on third down yesterday. 9 of 10. And they're in the red zone. They go 5 for 5. The Eagles, I don't know that Jonathan Gannon has a dime package. He's got 2 linebackers on the field. And what do? Hey, there's Eric Wilson. Let's get our guy matched up with Wilson. Well, Tyreek Hill against Eric Wilson, that's a mismatch. If you have 2 linebackers on the field inside the 10-yard line, I got news for you. I can draw up a play that's going to find Wilson and say, let me get my best player on him. That's elementary, my dear Watson. Like, come on, man. Adden, you got to get the linebacker off the field in that area. I don't know that he has a dime package. The scheme that he has thrown out there, look, I get it. They don't have the personnel. But when you have Tyreek Hill up against Eric Wilson, that's a problem. I think that ball was inside right around the 7-yard line. On third down, it was that one early in the game. Philadelphia's up 10-7. Man, this game was frustrating yesterday. Why? Yeah, they're better than you. But you were right there, man. This was like Rocky against Apollo. Apollo was the better fighter, but Rocky said, hey, I'm here, man. I'm here for this fight. I'm not going anywhere. 609 403 0973 is the text board. 609 403 0973. Hit me up on the text board all day long. We'll read off your text messages because I want to hear from you guys. Are you frustrated? Have you come to terms? Is there something that bothers you about this coaching staff? And the whole coaching thing, we got to get into this. The San Francisco Giants just won the division, 105 wins. Gabe Kapler's out in the field congratulating his team. And here we are bitching and moaning about Joe Girardi. Same thing here. You wanted Jim Schwartz gone. He's gone. Now who you bitching about? Jonathan Gannon. You wanted Brett Brown out. He's out. And now what? You complain about Doc Rivers. Doesn't that tell you something? Isn't there enough breadcrumbs to pick up to figure out that maybe we continue to blame the wrong people, or you do? Because I don't blame these guys. I didn't blame Gabe Kapler. I didn't blame Jim Schwartz. I didn't come in here on a Monday and say how bad Jim Schwartz was. Last year, I didn't blame Doug Peterson. I went after the guy it really was, Carson Wentz. And I'm not blaming Jonathan Gannon. Defense doesn't have enough talent. Yeah, Gannon could do a better job. He has a hand in it. He has a part. I don't blame Doc Rivers for why the Sixers lost to the Hawks. His players didn't play well enough. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the app in the Apple Store or Google Play. Message me through your phone. Mike McGarry's going to join me at 2:40 today in about 20 minutes. Also, Major League Baseball playoffs begin. We'll have them tomorrow night here on 97.3 ESPN. We got the football game tonight. It's a good one. Raiders and Chargers. Good week 4. NFC East, Jeff Kerr, one thought every game. Casey Joyner. Mosher has football at 4. Grayson's grades. And I got a bone to pick with Grayson on one of these grades. He handed out a D to someone who doesn't deserve a D at all. Find out who right now at our website, 973ESPN.com.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Free mobile app. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. If you're watching the show live on our Facebook channel, our YouTube channel, you can watch the show live on YouTube, streaming live on the YouTube channel each and every day, live video. You can check out all the guests like Mike McGarry, who will join me in 13 minutes from now. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Text board 609-403-0973. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Let me read off a couple of these. Again, I ask, Mike, why is it everyone else can see what the Eagles should or should not do, but the coaches can't? I will preface it by saying this. While I have strong convictions in my opinion, it doesn't mean that I'm right. Just because I think I'm right, and yes, I think you think you're right, and I think a lot of fans think we're right and that we know all the answers. We don't really know all the answers. But I will say this. I think Nick Sirianni did an okay job yesterday. I think he could do better. He definitively could do better. And I think Jonathan Gannon could do extremely better. Much better. Now, I will say this. In Gannon's defense, I don't think he's got the talent on defense. This is an aging, older defense with a lot of journeyman guys. You know, Eric Wilson's a journeyman. Alex Singleton's a journeyman. Anthony Harris is just a nice player. McLeod's coming off 2 ACL injuries. Steve Nelson's an okay player. Kerrigan's he's an old guy now. He's beat. Barnett stinks. Sweat's okay. Fletcher Cox is on the wrong side of 30. Hargrave's a nice player. He's a good player. Javon Hargrave's a good player. Of that group of guys, you just have a bunch of good players. Slay's a good player. You don't have a guy on this team. So I think Gannon's got his hands full over there. He got a defense that was inherited with talent that's just good. He does not have great talent. Sirianni's in a different situation. Now, he's got 4/5 of his offensive line out. Now, that being said, I think the Eagles did a nice job. I know people want to bang on Roseman, but they got Driscoll here. He can play. Herbig can play. They got Dickerson. They drafted him in the second round. He could play. Mailata can play. Dillard's done pretty well. Their line was not a problem yesterday. They've got talent. They've brought talent in on the offensive line. The depth on the offensive line is much more equipped this year than it was last year. And why is it more equipped this year? Because they brought these guys in last year, Herbig, Driscoll, and they played them. They had to. So now they're better for it. So the line yesterday with 4/5 of the line out was actually not a problem. Gainwell, I thought, played well yesterday. Gainwell was a guy they drafted this year. Smith, I thought Smith had a good game yesterday. Rieger, to me, Rieger's just another guy. That's a miss. I don't want to say it's a miss. He's not a bust. He's not J.J. Arcega-Whiteside bad, but he's a second or third guy. Watkins is okay. But the problem they have is they don't value linebackers, and that's just an organizational philosophy. You could bring a new GM here, and that guy's not going to draft linebackers. Why? Because the owner doesn't want to. Why? Because Andy Reid, he brought that mentality here that you don't need linebackers. You want to blame someone for them not having linebackers? Blame Andy Reid. The owner doesn't want to draft linebackers, so therefore the GM doesn't draft linebackers. The organization doesn't value that position. Their defense is just filled with guys who are average and good, not great. 609-403. So to go back to that guy, why can everyone else see what the Eagles should or should not do? Here's the problem. We can see it, but they're not good enough. They don't have the talent to do what we see. It's easy for us to come on here and pontificate. You need to do this, 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 and this. They just don't have the talent. They're going to take Eric Wilson out of the game, by the way, in the dime package and bring someone else in, and that guy's going to get Rochambeau'd. You know why? Because they don't have a guy good enough to defend Tyreek Hill. They just don't. That was evident yesterday. Are we willing to be patient with this coaching staff, or are we going to bitch and moan and say they need a new coaching staff again? Everybody wanted Schwartz out. Well, now he's out. Right? The grass isn't always greener. Guess what? You could bring in get Gannon out. You're going to bring a new guy in, and what you're going to do? You're going to complain about that guy. You know why? You can't play defense in this league. 1, 2, they don't have a lot of talent on defense. They just don't. They have been devoid of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, look, they drafted Fletcher Cox. They drafted Brandon Graham. They drafted Josh Sweat. Those are 3 guys that they drafted, and all 3 of those guys could play. The problem is Graham's 33, hurt. Fletcher Cox is on the wrong side of 30. Maybe he's slowing down a little bit. I don't know. They don't draft linebackers, and they have not been able to hit on the secondary. I mean, Maddox they drafted, but, I mean, he's just an okay nickel guy. 609-403-0973 on the text board, 609-403-0973. A couple more text messages. I'll get to the phones as well if you want to buzz in. 609-573-3776. Mike, to say the Eagles are anything but terrible is a lie. There is no hope. I'm not on that level yet. I mean, I think the quarterback played well. I think they have a receiver. They have young weapons. Gainwell's a nice player. They have 3 receivers who are all playmakers. The Goddard's a nice young tight end. They drafted him. For all that they don't draft well, Goddard's a player they drafted. He's pretty good. If Goddard played full-time, I think Goddard would have had 10 catches for 100 yards yesterday. I mean, between him and Ertz, they had 11 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown, and Goddard had a touchdown called back. They drafted Ertz, by the way. Mike, I think the entire coaching staff is in over its head. Maybe they can grow. Maybe they can. I think the front office is doing the entire fan base a disservice with this coaching staff. Tom from the Villas. Andy Reid's first year here, Tom and everybody else, they won 5 games. It looked like Andy Reid had no clue what he was doing. Doug Peterson looked like he had no clue what he was doing his first year. When you come in to a team and you've never been a head coach before, you've got to get your feet under you as a head coach. So to think the guy's going to come in and be at his optimal level his first 3 games in the NFL, first 4 games in the NFL, I don't think it's fair. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Mike, I listened to every game. Mike and Merrill have not mentioned Kerrigan's name once. You wouldn't hear Kerrigan's name mentioned because he barely plays. How many plays did he snaps yesterday? 22 snaps for Kerrigan. And, quite frankly, they are using Kerrigan in a role I don't think they envision having to use him in because of Graham getting hurt. Them the facts. 609-403-0973. Text message, download the free mobile app, message me through the app. I'll take some calls in the next hour as well. Grayson's Grades, 3 up, 3 down. Sports Bash is brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan now open Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot. Online, mattblattnissan.com. 609-573-3776 is how you connect through the phones. I see a lot of people watching the show today, and I will get to your messages as well. Jay chimes in. Howie restructuring Fletcher Cox was a big mistake. This is BS. He had to do that because of the salary cap problems that they were in. Yeah, that was kind of to get them under the cap, but in a perfect world, no, you don't need Fletcher Cox extended. Paul Mancini on the lack of running the ball. Do note, when you have 4 new starters on the offensive line, it's a lot more difficult to practice a running offense with a makeshift O-line instead of pass blocking. Well, they had to change the line an hour before the game started yesterday. I mean, Driscoll was supposed to start at right guard. They had to move him to right tackle an hour and a half before the game. Brett is watching on YouTube. The truth is this team needs young talent on defense. Look what Dallas did the last couple of years in the draft. Yeah, Brett, you're right. They need young impact players on defense. Absolutely 100%. This year they went with the receiver with Devonta Smith, and I don't have a problem with Smith. I think he's a very good player. I think he's in it. You're seeing already 100 yards yesterday, 70 and a touch in the first game. But that Micah Parsons would look pretty damn good wearing midnight green, wouldn't he? And it's not looking so good that he's wearing Cowboys blue, because he's going to be a terror for you for time to come. All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Our weekend observations are next.
Exam 4 needs to be sanitized.
Mersana's MRI clinic isn't operating at max efficiency. She needs a new certified tech certifiably now.
Someone's waiting in room 2 for an ACL scan. Can you handle that?
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. With Indeed Instant Match, we immediately show you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed meet your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you ready to take an adventure in Old San Juan? Atlantic City International Airport is ready to help with your adventure. Starting October 31st, Atlantic City International Airport will start offering nonstop flights to San Juan from Atlantic City. Whether exploring the local shops and restaurants or enjoying the beautiful beaches, San Juan proves to be the perfect destination for your next vacation. Experience the beach by day and the party by night in San Juan. Book your flight to San Juan today by visiting spirit.com. Comics.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is brought to you by Calvi Electric, offering residential services for your home and business online at calvielectric.com. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Eagles lose. Phillies are done. Sixers tonight. We got a lot to do. Some local things of interest as well. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, our weekend observations. And there he is on the video stream, checking out the Monday edition of the Sports Bash. It's kind of our version of Mike and Mike here. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
All is well, man. You know, I think I missed you on Saturday at the ShopRite LPGA. I was walking down. I almost got hit by a stray ball right there. Molinari hit one into the rough. You know, I never saw this before. The caddy was on all fours trying to find her ball.
Yeah, some of that rough around on the bay course there can get a little thick and a little squirrely. So, yeah, definitely. It was definitely a good weekend out at ShopRite. We saw you there on Friday. I was walking the course late on Saturday. First of all, 3 great days weather-wise. Right? You couldn't have any better weather days, basically. And then, a good, exciting tournament. Most people were probably watching Eagles-Chiefs, but around 4 o'clock on Sunday, but Celine Boudier really rallies from a 5-shot deficit, takes advantage of some missed putts by the best players in the world, and becomes the second woman from France to win the ShopRite LPGA Classic.
Right. Well, that was going on Sunday all weekend long. Great event, beautiful weather. I was out Saturday. Great attendance, by the way. It looked like it was pretty crowded for the entire weekend out there. But let's get into this Eagles yesterday, because they're in this game a little bit. It feels like yesterday they were kind of in this game a little. The Dallas game, they felt like they weren't in that game. Yesterday, they were kind of going back and forth, and you know that Kansas City's defense is going to keep you in that game. But again, you look at the coach again and say, what's going on here? I mean, do you look at Sirianni and Gannon and say they're holding this team back?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, about the game, even though I was at ShopRite, I was able to follow the game, check it on TV. You follow it on your phone. And it just seemed to me that although the Eagles were in the game, they weren't in the game, right? The Eagles and the Chiefs could play from now till next January, and the Chiefs would still be 7 to 10 points ahead of them. Sometimes they might be 14 points ahead of them, but they'll always be 7 to 10 points ahead of them. And I think, one of the things that I worried about with the Eagles when the season started, and I thought one of the factors that was going to hold them back and why I thought they'd be 5-12 was the inexperience of the coaching staff. And I think so far in the first 4 weeks of the season, including yesterday, they have paid for that inexperience. And right now, Nick Sirianni looks like he's in a little bit over his head. Now, that's just 4 weeks in. Will he look like he's in over his head next week, or 5 weeks from now, or, week 17, 18? I don't know. But right now, through the first 4 weeks, and I don't think it's completely unexpected, he looks like he's in a little bit over his head.
All right. With that, it's a good walking us down this path, because obviously this weekend you saw Gabe Kapler go out there. He wins the division, 105 wins. We all blame Brett Brown, not me, most people. And we're complaining about Doc Rivers, that he's not very good. Now we complain about Joe Girardi. Everybody wants Jim Schwartz out. Now they're complaining about Gannon. Peterson was a problem. Now they're complaining about Sirianni. Do we put too much stock in how much the coach impacts games?
On the professional level, probably a little bit. It's an easy scapegoat, right? You can't change, 53 players in the NFL, 15 players in basketball, 26 players in baseball. So you can make changes in the coaching staff and some glaring decisions. Like yesterday, I guess the mix-up down, on the goal line where they call a timeout, and then they send the field goal team in after they call the timeout and things like that. You bring up Kapler. Obviously, the Giants win the National League West. I don't think there's anybody. I think the general consensus around baseball is that Gabe Kapler learned from his 2 years in Philadelphia and is now much better in year 4 as a manager. His second year with the Giants, and he was in year 1 with the Phillies. So Sirianni might be the same thing. And that's why I say right now, it looks like the job's a little too big for him. But is that going to be the case 5 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, at the end of this season,
Right.
the beginning of next year. I think when you hired a rookie coach, you had to expect these growing pains, and they were going to cost you some games early in the season. Though I don't think if Sirianni makes every right move, I don't think the Eagles necessarily beat the Chiefs tomorrow or beat Dallas last week, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. Look, no one, myself included, sitting here telling you that they're more talented than the Chiefs, but, they go 5 for 5 in the red zone. You go for 3 for 6. You had 3 touchdowns called back. 3 touchdowns called back. I don't know that I've ever seen a game where you had 18 points taken off the board just because of dumb penalties. So it's almost like you're wondering, if not for the sloppiness and the penalties and the mistakes that the coaching staff, they have a hand. Gabe Kapler, Joe Girardi, Brett Brown, Docker, they have a hand in why you win or lose here and there. But they're not the reason that people make them out to be. If they convert these, they scored 3 touchdowns. It's called back. I mean, so are you right there in that these little sloppiness are holding you back? Are the Chiefs not as good as we think? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs' defense is not very good right now. But again, I think their offense is just, if you were going to get in a shootout with Pat Mahomes, the Eagles are going to lose that game. That's why I said they could play from now
on Friday, right?
Right, and it's going to be 7 to 10 points. The troublesome factor is, hey, what are coaches supposed to do? Coaches are supposed to keep a team disciplined. That's why the penalties are kind of troublesome to me and the coaching staff. You look at the other guy on the other sideline. Andy Reid's won 100 games with Kansas City's won 100 games with Philadelphia. We probably have all seen, Andy Reid clock management decisions or Andy Reid doing this, second guess this. But his teams generally play crisp football, basically. Right now, you're having some questionable decisions from Sirianni, and then you've got the penalties, which is, would concern me more than some of his in-game decisions, basically.
All right. Yeah, you're a guy who, you're a Giant guy, and you've got a second-year head coach there. How much, is Joe Judge getting better? Is he not? Is he not? I mean, as a Giant fan, as opposed to an outside observer, do you look at Judge as what?
Well, originally, everybody kind of loved the Joe Judge, his persona, how he talked, seemingly how he coached the team. Even though they won 6 games last year, everybody said, okay, it's a solid step forward. Then they start 0-3 this season, and all of a sudden the narrative sort of flips, and you're saying, hey, is this guy as good as we thought he was? Is he the guy for the job? They go down to New Orleans and win yesterday, so kind of buy some time heading into Dallas this week. But again, that's the other thing. These used to be NFL coaches got like 5 years. They hire a coach, you're on the 5-year plan right now. Now it seems like you're on that 2-year, 3-year plan, coaches and quarterbacks, right? If they don't show some promise in that 2 to 3 years, you're going to the next guy. And then you're on a track where, you're kind of spinning your wheels a lot of the time, basically.
Yeah, I know that. Oh boy, you look at what's going on with Sirianni, and look, Andy Reid, when he got here, the team was not very good. Even how much of this is like, I like it to the NFL is almost the college game now. You hire a guy and he needs to get his recruits in here. Like the talent you give him isn't conducive to what he wants to do. I feel like when I watch Jonathan Gannon's defense, he's like, these guys don't fit what I want to call.
Yeah, but isn't that the job of a coach, is to not, figure out the system that takes optimum advantage of the talent that you have. So while you might want to get some players that fit your system better, if you don't have them, I don't know if it's wise to just put your system on them and watch them sort of fail there. And Andy Reid struggled his first year. The second year, he kind of took off. We'll see what Peterson, sort of the same thing. We'll see what happens here. But 4 games in, you definitely have to say that Sirianni the job appears to be a little bit too much for him now. And again, I said it before, that could change next week. That could change.
Like I said, I didn't think I thought Sirianni against Dallas and San Francisco was atrocious. Yesterday, I would say if I'm grading him, I give him a C- yesterday. Gannon's defense continues to get Rochambeau, though. He looks like he doesn't have an answer. Now, that being said, I don't look at their defense and say you have a guy or multiple guys who should be able to stop Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. Like, they just don't have that player on defense.
Yeah, in fairness to them, the Eagles yesterday, there's not a lot of football teams who can stop the Kansas City Chiefs. And in fairness to them, not making excuses, the Dallas Cowboys look pretty good, and there's probably not a whole lot of football teams that can stop the Dallas Cowboys on offense this season. So they have gone back-to-back against two high-powered offense. Look at what the Cowboys did to the Panthers yesterday, and they're supposed to be one of the better defenses in football. So in fairness to the Eagles, they are playing some high-powered offense.
Right. Now, if we were and look, measuring stick against the Giants and the Washington football team isn't much, but you went to Atlanta and beat up on that team. The Giants lost at home to Atlanta, and the Washington football team really got into a fist fight with them. So comparatively speaking, that's the thing. It's like it's such a week-to-week thing. Gannon and Sirianni, man, they looked well prepared in week number one, not so prepared the next couple of weeks.
Well, it begs the question then, the Eagles were very vanilla during the preseason. They made no bones about the fact that they weren't showing anything because they wanted to surprise some teams. And maybe they did that with the Atlanta Falcons, and maybe everybody else sort of went to school on what they showed against the Atlanta Falcons and has been able to get a better read on them and prepare for them much better ever since.
You know what, though? And this is the one thing I'll say about that. Is have confidence and faith in what you do. Don't worry about showing it to other people. If you do it well, do it and practice it and get it out. Do it. You know what I'm saying? These guys overthink, man.
I would agree with you, but football coaches by nature tend to be secretive, and Sirianni took that to a new level this season, basically.
Absolutely. This is what I do. Now, they didn't run the ball a lick again yesterday. Sanders completely not a part of the offense. That's going to be it's going to be hard to compete week in and week out if you're this unbalanced. But Mike, before we run, got about a minute and a half here. Philly's done. Ben Simmons not going to play tonight. Sixers will play tonight. No Joel Embiid, no Tobias Harris. So basically nothing there. And we had a very interesting game. You were with me on Friday, and you headed over to the big high school football game, and we had a pretty good result.
Yeah, Cedar Creek beats Holy Spirit 7-6 on Friday night. Cedar Creek looking like a team capable of winning a South Jersey title and contending in that regional bowl championship. JoJo Bermuda's top Division I prospect, Jaquan Howard, nice running back. So Cedar Creek now undefeated. And really, we weren't expecting a defensive struggle, but we got one, 7-6, and that set up this week's big game. Holy Spirit will play St. Augustine, host St. Augustine on Friday night. Holy Spirit at 3-2, looking to get back on a winning track. And St. Augustine right now looking like the best team in South Jersey at 4-1, 5-1, really rolling along. So they'll roll into Absecon on Friday night for another matchup between those highly touted parochial powers, basically.
Good stuff. At AC Press McGarry, a little look at the weekend, and that American League wild card was wild yesterday as well. It's going to be Yankees Red Sox tomorrow night here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Mike, we'll talk to you Wednesday.
All right, see you later, Mike.
Mike McGarry's appearance today is brought to you by Calvi Electric, offering residential services for your home and business. Online, calvielectric.com. Yeah, you can listen to the Red Sox and Yankees, the baseball playoffs. Now, yesterday, I actually had a lot of interest in that American League race. There was scenarios, right, where the Yankees could have been like the C team in the A, B, C, D pecking order, and they would have got a chance to pick which team they wanted to play, and apparently they picked the Red Sox. But that didn't happen. Toronto lost. Seattle lost. Boston and New York both won, so they'll play in a one-game wild card game tomorrow night, and you can hear that game live right here on 97.3 ESPN. Cards and Dodgers, one of those teams is not going to make the playoffs. Well, they're in the playoffs, but this is not really playoffs. This is just made-for-TV hokiness. And when we come back, Grayson's grades the Eagles, and I got a bone to pick with him with one of his grades. Find out next.
We know sports.
The Couturier, he scores! Just don't quit by the fire.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
All right, hour two of the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. It means it's time for Grayson's Grades. They're brought to you by Boardwalk Honda from Maine to Miami. Nobody beats a Boardwalk deal. Online, boardwalkhonda.com. Now, I told you earlier, Scott Grayson has a grade that I just can't agree with at all. And he's already getting ripped for it all over social media, and I'm sure he probably has an idea of which that one is. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I'll ask him, is there a grade that you gave Scott Grayson that even has you scratching your head?
I'm not exactly sure which one you're speaking of. I've been running around all day and haven't been paying too much attention.
You gave a D to Javon Hargrave. He's the only guy on the team that showed up.
Okay, and I agree with you in the sense that he is the only guy that showed up. But despite that, I mean, his numbers weren't that great. And that defensive line as a whole, quite frankly, failed.
Hold on a second. He had 6 tackles, a sack, a tackle for a loss, and a quarterback hit.
One. I mean, when I'm giving guys like A's and B's on the defensive line, they're getting back there multiple times.
Oh, I didn't say he didn't get an A or a B, but he got a D. I mean, it's almost like you held the guy's standard to if he doesn't get 2 sacks in a game now, you're failed.
There's not a number standard that goes to it, but that whole defense gave up 6 touchdowns on really 7 possessions. He's a part of that. They didn't stop first down. He's a part of that. I singled him out separately from the rest of the defensive line, which got an F, because, I do appreciate the effort he's giving, but it's obviously not enough. It's not enough. And unfortunately for him, it's not enough because he definitely has been the best player on that defense, the whole defense, quite frankly, so far this season.
Right. Now, for context, he gave John Gannon an F, the linebackers an F, Derek Barnett an F, and the defensive line an F. He got a D. So he was the best of a bad day for the defense. And look, they gave up 200 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns to Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill had a monster day. Is this John Gannon in over his head? Is this the defense doesn't have enough talent? He doesn't know. You know this. College football, you bring a coach in and he doesn't have the right recruits. Well, that first year or two until he gets his first recruiting class. I mean, is this a case that Gannon doesn't have the right personnel for this defense? Why is this defense first week against Atlanta looked really good? Second week against the 49ers held them to 19 points or whatever it was. Did a nice job in that game. Last 2 weeks, 83 points.
Yeah, and so to answer your question briefly, I would say that Gannon is partially at fault. I would put Howie at fault for the other half because this defense obviously has no talent. I shouldn't say no talent. It has some talent, but it doesn't have enough talent. They need to go out and they need to do a lot of work. Look, they got younger on offense, and we had been saying that they had been old. They're old. They needed to get younger. They got younger on offense this year. And look, it's actually working out decently. They have to do the same thing this next offseason on the defense. And then I think we can start talking about maybe building something here. Now, what my frustration is with Gannon is I'm not seeing any attempt to do anything different. Bring a blitz, bring different blitzes, do different stunts. Try to do something different to get your defense to make a play. Don't keep doing the same thing and giving up 8, 9, 10 yards on first down and thinking you're going to finally get off the field somewhere along the line. It's just not going to happen, especially against that offense that you were facing yesterday. So with Jonathan Gannon, I need to see a little creativity. It may not work, but show me that you're trying. And on the other side of that, look, he just doesn't have much talent to do a whole lot with. I think Darius Slay, I think Steven Nelson, they haven't been as good as I'd hoped. We got our first glimpse at Rodney McLeod back. Let's give him a week or two to really get, his feet under him again. I'm still seeing Omar Epps out there. I don't know why.
Marcus
and the
Marcus
linebackers.
Epps.
You want to talk about an egregious amount of lack of talent. This linebacker crew is just, they're getting gashed in the running game because of those guys, quite frankly. And that's not Jonathan Gannon's fault. He didn't pick them and put them there. He's dealing with what he has. That's on Howie for sure.
Yeah, by the way, it's Marcus Epps, not Omar.
The Marcus
Epps,
Epps, you're right.
He's playing about the way Omar Epps might play if he was in the game. You're right. I mean, but Gannon's playing his safeties 15 yards off the ball. His linebackers are just not run stoppers. So, it's like I feel like the personnel just doesn't match the scheme that he's calling.
And you're just not getting pressure on the quarterback. So you're asking these guys back there, in fairness to Nelson and Slay, you're asking them to cover for a long time at different times. And without help, I mean, what was Tyreek Hill doing running free that far? I know it was late in the game. The game was already pretty much decided, but what are you doing? Why are you playing him man-to-man?
And on
no
the goal
chance.
line, they're 5 for 5 in the red zone yesterday. Yeah. And one of the red zones, you got Eric Wilson matched up on Tyreek Hill because you're running a nickel in an area where you should be running the dime defense. To me, Gannon so far seems like he's a little lost. Sirianni, I thought, had a better game, and you gave him a C. I thought he was better. I agree with you. I would have given like a C minus, whatever, because I thought he was closer to a D than he was a B, but C's fine. I thought he was much better, even though 11 runs, not good enough. 8 of those runs came from Hurts. He was the leading rusher again yesterday, but 3 for 6 in the red zone and 3 touchdowns taken off the board, Scott.
Well, the penalties just continue to kill this team. And it's this. Here's the thing. When it happened the first time with Rager stepping out of bounds and they got a touchdown taken away earlier in the season, you'd like to think there's a teaching moment there with these younger guys to make sure that doesn't happen again, but it happened again. So that's an egregious mistake on the coaching staff of not taking an issue and fixing it. And you could get into whether he was pushed out of bounds or not. I think they made the right call, as much as that would have been a big play. You talk about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's penalty that pulled up. I mean, he's got to do a better job of not extending that arm. They're watching for that. They've said that's a point of emphasis. You cannot extend an arm because it's an apparent and obvious, pass interference at that point. Just all he had to do was run his guy into the other guy, and it would have been fine. Yeah. So these are problems. And with Sirianni, yes, what I liked better was I actually saw a plan yesterday. The misdirection at the beginning, I saw a plan. I saw a script. That was not there against Dallas.
The first drive of the game, very well designed, very good play calls, well-designed plays. I thought he did a much better job of mixing. The tight ends were involved yesterday. They had 11 catches for over 100 yards. Goddard had a touchdown. He would have had another touchdown. Had what was that? Was that the one Dillard went down the field on?
Yes. Yeah, and the the other thing to me is you got all that misdirection going at the beginning of the game. I agree with you. It was a well-planned attack. It worked. It was begging for them to run the ball up the middle and then do play action off of it, and they never did that. Now, I was listening to Sirianni a very short time ago because he was speaking this afternoon, and he said, that there are plays that were called for Miles Sanders, but they're reading the defense. And I think he's referring to some of these RPOs where Jalen Hurts pulled the ball and ran it instead of giving it to him because the defense was, apparently playing the run. Okay, fine. But I've been adamant about this. You got to give Miles Sanders around 20 touches a game. He may, he's one of those guys like a LaShawn McCoy that's going to get you 2 yards, 3 yards, 5 yards, and then boom, he'll break one. But you got to give him the opportunities to get the game under his legs. And right now, Sirianni's not doing that. You look at the things that worked in week 1 against Atlanta. They had a good game plan on offense. They spread the ball around. They mixed up the run and the pass. They haven't done that since. And I think that's a mistake by the coaching staff.
Yeah, now today, Nick Sirianni said about the defensive problems, there were some tough conversations in the defensive room. I'm wondering what that means. Are we going to see some guys being replaced? Because, Scott, quite frankly, if you're grading some of these guys, Derek Barnett, do they have people to replace them?
They may not have somebody to replace Derek Barnett, but at this point, look, if you, Mike, and anybody out there, in our normal day-to-day jobs, if we make an egregious mistake, we get a talking to. If we make it again, there starts to be some sort of a penalty. Look, I know they can't suspend the guy. Make Derek Barnett inactive next week. Send him a message that this is inexcusable. He is costing this team badly, and that we are going to be better off with you not dressing and hurting us with a penalty than being out there. At this point, something like that needs to be done for a week to send him a message, because he's obviously not getting it. This stuff continues to happen.
He had
agree
a
with you
15-yard penalty again, by the way, Barnett,
Yeah.
for the people out there. Sirianni also said today that the language was harsher today when discussing the penalties with his team. So I'd like to see what that actually means.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's because the owner finally said this is embarrassing. Here's the thing: it's amazing listening to Sirianni yesterday and today. I'm seeing a guy who's aging rapidly. I see a guy.
It's funny. I said, does this guy look like he is like aged in the last 4 weeks? He looks like he's added 10 years to him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems like the stress and I don't know what he thought this was going to be like.
Right?
The grind of the week to week in the NFL. I mean, he had a good game plan for Atlanta. He had all off season to plan for that. Now you come into this in the week to week game planning that he's doing. I saw an improvement this past week, as we talked about, with a plan, a script. It worked early on, but he's got to build on that week to week. And what's going to happen next week when he has a short week with Tampa? I mean, that's going to be painful potentially. These next 6 games are rough. I don't know. I was saying last night on Fox 29, he does not have time to be patient with these adjustments, or they're going to go for the next 6 games, and the season's gone. It's rough. He's got a lot to do. The penalties, again, I said last week, and I'm saying it again here. To me, they're on the coaching staff at this point. When they happen this frequently, and you are now leading the league like you have been in that department, these refs scout the teams they're going to be calling games for. They look at this team and they say, "Oh yeah, we got to watch these guys. They're making a lot of penalties." You're not helping yourself, and that's on the coaching staff to fix it.
Yeah, 9 for 49 yesterday, but it's not even the yardage so much. It's just the when. It's the Derek Barnett 3rd and 15. That extends that drive. They end up getting a touchdown. 3 touchdowns off the board. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. That's just an unnecessary penalty. The Dillard one is a little flimsy.
I agree. But again, when you have a reputation of being this heavily penalized, they're watching everything.
Yeah, I think that was Dillard's 4th illegal man down the field call. So I guess in situations like that, he's getting watched. Scott Grayson's grades are posted right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. There was some good. Jalen Hurts. Yesterday, Nick Sirianni said, look, I've coached some of the best quarterbacks in this league, and he played one of the best games that I've ever seen. Would you concur that he had that good of a game yesterday?
I would say it was potentially and arguably Jalen Hurts' best game in the NFL. That being said, there's still a lot of things to fix. One play in particular, I know he was extending a play. It was 4th down. Why throw the ball out of bounds on 4th down? If anything, let it be picked off 30 yards downfield. At least you're giving your defense a better chance, and you're giving a receiver, theoretically, an opportunity to make a play.
Yeah, that one was.
That's got to be better. I thought at times, he doesn't trust his pocket, and I don't really blame him when 4 starters are out on the offensive line. You don't know what you're going to get up there. There are things he can do better. I think, there was a play late in the game, I think it was at the first half. Time was winding down, and they did not spike the ball. Actually, I think he may have turned it over on this play. I think you take your time out there. You give yourself a chance to set the offense. They hurried stuff up, and I think they made a penalty or there was a turnover. It wasn't a turnover because they didn't have one yesterday. But there are things Jalen Hurts is doing well. I thought he did a lot of good things yesterday. But that being said, it wasn't good enough. And, I think there are areas of his game that he can still work on. And, look, you can't tell a guy in his 6th, 7th, 8th start that, you're here now. He's not. He's still got room to improve. And some of his checks at the line of scrimmage, I think that, we don't know the nitty gritty on all those because we don't know what was called versus what he checked to. But I think there's some things he definitely could do better. But he took a step forward. And quite frankly, this team needed to see that out of him. He just needs a defense on the other side to at least give him a chance. And quite frankly, in the red zone, I held him accountable for too. Some of his choices on where to throw the ball led to those missed red zone touchdowns and field goals. And in a game like that, you need touchdowns, not field goals.
Yeah, he was 32 of 48, 387 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 carries, 47 yards, no turnovers. He did get sacked 3 times. Let me ask you, you didn't grade the offensive line, but 4 new offensive linemen out there in that game, and you found out just an hour and a half before the game that you were going to have to add that 4th guy because Lane Johnson – now there's no update on Lane Johnson today from Sirianni. It was a personal reason, personal matter, but you had Driscoll at right tackle, Herbig at right guard, Kelsey at center, Landon Dickerson flipped over to left guard, and, of course, Dillard. So you had 4/5 of your starting line not there, but I thought they played pretty well.
Yeah, I should have graded them considering all those changes as well. I probably would have given them a B or a C, which is good considering all the changes because an offensive line really flourishes on being in sync, understanding what the guy next to you is going to do. And when there's a complete change, especially an hour and a half before the game, when the inactives come out, you go, whoa, there was no practice with this unit together. And quite frankly, I thought they did pretty well. I mean, Andre Dillard, any ineligible receiver downfield, Sirianni explained this too. Most of the time, that's a timing thing. They count 1,000, 2, 1,000, and they go down. The ball should have been out, and it wasn't. That's on Hurts. Or whatever happened behind the play to keep it from happening. And those offensive linemen have released expecting to be blocking. I thought overall they did pretty good. And you're talking about young offensive linemen. So you want to talk about a bright spot on this offense again. You're seeing guys who were pressed into action last year. They got some experience. You're seeing the benefits of that. And perhaps there's more depth here than a lot of us thought there was going into the season. But, hopefully – whatever happened with Lane Johnson is not serious or his family or anything like that. And hopefully he's okay and he'll be back. But, same thing. They got to get, some of these guys back. But at least this week, I thought that offensive line, they did well enough to give this team a chance to win.
Yeah, I agree there. And a lot of – look, Herbig played a lot last year. Driscoll played a lot last year. They got snaps. Dillard was a first-round pick. I mean, and I thought he's been playing pretty well, which could end up, helping this team out. As somebody kind of mentioned over here in the chat, in the video chat, just give me all losses at this point and a top 3 pick in next year's draft. Well, people are already starting to think about the draft. But, Scott, as you know, you got Miami and Indianapolis's picks right now, and they're both in the top 10 at this point, as is your own pick. You could have 3 top 10 picks, and I know what everybody's saying, but Howie Roseman's the one making those picks. That to me is inconsequential. You drafted Devonta Smith, he can play. You've drafted Dallas Goedert, he can play. You've drafted guys that can play. You get 3 first-round picks. I'm going to take my chances because guess what? The very best GMs in this league, their hit rate's about 50%.
Yeah, and people are saying, what do they have with Jalen Hurts? Do they need to trade those for any part of those 3 picks for a quarterback? Look, I think the best scenario is you hope Jalen Hurts is good enough. Yesterday, they put up 30 points. If the defense holds the opponent to less than 30, you win the game. Yeah. And I'm not saying they're going to do that every week, but if they can build to that, imagine if you could take 3 top 10 picks. One of the things I love the Eagles did back, during Andy Reid's time early on, I think, or maybe right before that, you got Bobby Taylor, Troy Vincent, and you had these guys, you built them in the back of your defense for years. Imagine if they could take 2 really good corners or a corner and a safety and protect the back end and really address in this draft a lot of defense and get younger on defense.
Yeah.
Look at what Dallas did.
They've addressed
the
offense.
And Trayvon Diggs are a big part of their defense.
Oh, yeah. And look, they've addressed the offensive side of the ball. They went Rieger, they went Smith, they went Dickerson, they got Watkins. I mean, they've addressed the offensive side of the ball the last couple of drafts. I would imagine with those picks, if you're not going to use them to go get a Deshaun Watson or make that big trade for a quarterback, that you can now try to focus on finding that difference-making talent on defense because it's time. They have to.
I agree. And let's just say, look, Jalen Hurts is not going to be the top quarterback in the league. He's not, and he probably won't be in the next 5 years. But if you can win with him because he's spreading the ball around, he has that threat with his legs, he stays healthy, then why not get your defense to be better? And if you can become a good or great defense that's younger and stays healthy and makes plays, forces some turnovers, again, I'm fine with that. I'd rather that because it's more balanced and it's easier to win if you can hold an opponent down and all you need to do is get 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game. This offense can do that. They've shown it, but they're going to have to wait till the offseason or till next year, obviously, to to rectify this problem on defense as far as talent goes.
That's Scott Grayson. His grades are up right now. Grayson's grades every Monday after the Eagles game. Next week, it'll be Eagles-Panthers. Now, the Panthers, their defense has been very good. Yesterday, they got beat up a little bit by Dallas, so they're coming in off of a loss. Actually, you're going down to Charlotte after a loss. So Grayson's grades next Monday after Eagles-Panthers. To get the full list of grades, go to 973ESPN.com and follow Scott Grayson on Twitter at SGraysonFox29. Check him out on Fox 29. Props and locks and everything else. Scott, all right, man. Another loss. Ugly.
Another loss, ugly. And Hargrave got that D.
He did. Check out why. Go to the website now. All right, Scott, take care. He gave Hargrave a D. I don't understand it. Even his explanation, I get it. Next to the other guys, they all got Fs, and he got a D. I thought Hargrave was one of the better guys. Coming up, I have 3 up, 3 down, and you can see who my best 3 and worst 3 things from the game were on Sunday. Go to 973ESPN.com. This hour of the Sports Bash is brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Choose better banking for rates on loans, refinancing, and credit cards. Free or low-cost financial products and friendly personal service. Visit JerseyShoreFCU.org for more information. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Scott Grayson's grades are brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. From Maine to Miami, nobody beats a Boardwalk deal. Online at BoardwalkHonda.com. You can download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play and DM us through your app. I'll open up the phones if you want to jump in right now. 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. Jump on board. I'll open up the phones on the other side. Plus, I'll take some text and more of your social media postings. A lot of people watching the show live today. So we'll read off your comments in the video stream as well. And coming up at 3:40, I'll give you my 3 up and 3 down. Plus, Jeff Mosher is here for football at 4. His observations on the game, 10 observations from Jeff Mosher. Casey Joyner, one thought every game. That's coming up tonight at 5 o'clock. Don't forget Monday Night Football here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. 328 Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Make sure to follow me there. Sixers play tonight. By the way, the Sixers roster is out, and Ben Simmons is on the roster. He will not play tonight, but he is listed as part of the roster. Joel Embiid will not play tonight either, nor will Tobias Harris. The game's not on TV, so you don't have to you won't be able to watch it unless it's on NBA TV. It's not on NBC Sports Philadelphia, so you can't watch it there. By the way, NBC Sports Philadelphia and YouTube TV came to an agreement, so I avoided that catastrophe of having to try to find a new quote-unquote cable provider. Not really a cable provider, somewhere to get television. I mean, if that agreement didn't happen, I would have lost NBC Sports Philadelphia. I would have had to get a new what else is out there? Like, I was doing some research. I saw, like, Fubo as one option. I think Hulu, which has live TV, I think that was another one that was in the mix there. What else is out there? I use YouTube TV. I was like, you got to be kidding me that they're getting rid of NBC Sports Philadelphia.
So if you're willing to go the non-digital route, you could always go with one of the dishes.
Yeah, I'm out on the dish.
Okay, so if you want to go
digital,
no
part of the dish.
So you mentioned Hulu.
Yep.
There's also Sling TV.
Okay,
that's
Sling.
also out there. There's also Roku, where it's kind of almost an a la carte kind of situation.
All right. Now this is what I want. Now I'm okay now because YouTube TV has been saved. Although the price is going up. It's like $65.
All the prices are going up across the board.
Right. It was $39.99 when I got it. It's $65 now.
Like the price for Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, Paramount Plus, HBO Max, they all have gone up recently.
Right. So it's $65 for YouTube TV, which the reason you get it is because it was $39.99, then it was $49.99, now it's $64.99.
Right.
But I like the guide. I want it to resemble the Comcast cable guide. I want to be able to go through the guide and see what is on TV on your station. Like my buddy has something, and it's great. It's an app on your phone that goes over, the app goes to your TV, and it's got everything. I mean, I can get NBC in Philly, New York, Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco. I can get Fox in he's got every game on every, like NBC Philly, Bay Area, blah, 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 Fox 1 or Bally's, whatever it's called. The problem is it doesn't have a guide. So it's like, I said, well, what if I want to watch HGTV, for instance? Whatever. Well, you got to put HGTV in. Can't just scroll through. Like, I want to see what's on. I want to watch Flip or Flop. You know what I mean? Can't do it. So I need something that has the guide.
Well, did you say that because that's the new sales pitch for Hulu TV? Because their new shtick is, hey, we have a guide now. We have a guide that you can scroll through like if you had cable or dish.
Is who?
Hulu.
Right. Hulu has live sports.
Right. But their shtick now is we have a guide. We don't just have live sports. We don't just have live TV. We have the guide you can scroll through.
All right. Now that's good.
So that's their new selling point now.
Okay. All right.
Now for me, I haven't switched over to, for example, the Hulu live TV.
Were you still on cable?
I'm still on cable because for me, my situation deems it's just less expensive for me to keep going this route until further notice.
Yeah, I have cable and I have the YouTube TV, which is I'm spending way too much money. I mean,
right. Say for me, I gotta make a choice. You know, what is the less expensive option? One of the problems with it, obviously, with all these streaming options, you gotta have good internet. You can't have the lousy average internet.
Can't.
So you gotta pay top tier. Well, how does Xfinity/Comcast sucker you? They get you by saying, well, you want the best internet, you got to pay full price, or you get the cable TV and you get it for a discount.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is for someone like me, I can't have the highest brand of internet unless I pay for the cable, because then I'm paying almost double for the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. Like, because in my house, we had cable. The problem was they couldn't get a cable box in my living room. The guy said, oh, the cable wires that we had were like the old, like coaxial, like they didn't work on the new digital boxes. So we couldn't get a box that worked in my living room. That's why we don't have cable in my living room.
And they didn't offer to replace those?
They brought in a digital box that was supposed to run off the modem, but we couldn't get it to work. We had a guy out there 3 times. They couldn't get it to work. So we
Wow.
cannot get cable in the living room.
That's nuts.
They have to rewire, and you have to go under the house and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
and do all the stuff to do it.
At that point for you, it's not worth it.
Well, we got YouTube TV out there. I said, all right, whatever. I'll use the YouTube TV. I'll be, hey, we'll put the cable in my bedroom. I mean, but in the end, I really should choose one over the other. But the whole point is you have to have internet to have YouTube. And if you only get the internet, you're paying $90 for just internet.
Oh, you're actually paying more than that now.
Right. So I'm paying about what I would pay if I got rid of cable and just had the internet with YouTube, because they're going to jack up my internet fee.
Right, because the way they get you is they want you to do all these bundles. Everything's a bundle now. Every commercial's a bundle. So everyone wants you to get a package deal. So they give you the discount only on the package deal, because if you only pay for one, you're getting gouged on the other.
All right, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Let's read off some of these texts. I'll take some calls. Let me get the phone lines. 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. Mike, you should call it Gray Goose grades. The dude is definitely sipping when he writes them. That's from Tom in the Villas. Now, Tom, I don't agree with that. I called him out on the one. Generally, I think Scott does a great job grading. Just because you don't agree with the grades, I bet you're the guy who said when your teacher gave you an F, you probably said, I deserved a D. I mean, yeah, you're not always going to agree with his grades. I thought that he was a little too harsh on Hargrave. What other grade did you have a problem with? Of all the grades he gave out, you probably had a problem with Hargrave, and now you're saying that he was drinking Gray Goose grades because of one grade that you don't agree. What other grade did you not agree with on that list? I'll hang up and listen. 609-403-0973. Cole from LBI. Mike, I think the Eagles season is going to get pretty ugly until they play the Giants. Then they can win 4 in a row against the Giants, Jets, Washington, and Giants. So if they can get another win before then and then get those 4 wins, they should get about 6 wins. That's from Cole and LBI. I think, look, we're complaining after they lost to San Francisco, who's going to make the playoffs most likely, Dallas, who I have in my Find 5. I think they're one of the 5 best teams in the league. And Kansas City, who's been to the Super Bowl 3 out of the last 4 years. I mean, considering, yes, the schedule has been very difficult. I think they should be competitive with Carolina, even though they're much better. Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl next year. It doesn't get any easier there. We'll see what Vegas does tonight. Detroit, look, I think they can compete with Carolina. I think they can compete with the Raiders. I think they can compete with Detroit, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Saints, the Giants, the Jets. You know, it's really the only game left on the schedule. You're like, all right, it's Tampa Bay. You know, Dallas is just flat out better than they are. I think we're holding them to a standard that's probably not fair. They in no world should they have beaten Dallas or Kansas City. And quite frankly, they probably aren't good enough to beat San Francisco either. San Fran lost yesterday, by the way. A little surprised. I was a little surprised by that. That NFC West is crazy. Tom at Summers Point, you're on 97.3. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Mike, the only grade that matters right now is an F+ for Howie Roseman. You can't turn a Volkswagen into a Cadillac. Let me ask you a question. How many drop backs, throw the ball down the field passes have we seen so far this year with such speed we have a wide receiver? I can't count any, Mike.
How many what?
You know why? Because how many drop back passes and just truck it down the field? Like 0. You know why, Mike? Because the quarterback is not good enough. He has no arm strength. You see him underthrowing all the deep balls. You can't have a passing attack if you don't have wide receivers that can beat anybody. So they're loading the box and they're shutting down the run. You can't run the ball. There's nowhere to run it, Mike. Howie Roseman gets an F+. He built this roster. Don't give me, he made draft choices, Dallas Goedert, Lane Johnson, da-da-da. Come on, Mike, that's ludicrous. The ones you missed off to take a regular over Jefferson, that's a huge mistake that we haven't recovered from. To take Jalen Hurts in the first pick in the second round, huge mistake that we're not going to recover from. Jalen Hurts can't quarterback an NFL team. I'm sorry. He's not Justin Herbert. He's not Tua. He's none of those quarterbacks.
Tua stinks, by the way.
Mike, I take him over freaking Jalen Hurts. That kid from New England last night. That kid's a player. He looks like he's thrown. Mike, you can't run the ball if there's nowhere to run it. So I don't know what these coaches are supposed to do But this roster was built by Howie Roseman, and I got news for you. I would take the Jets defense over ours right now, and we know who that's built from. And I'll tell you one more thing, Mike. The Jets will make the playoffs before we do. And it all comes down to the GM because it's taken time with that team because they've been so bad. But that is a young team, and they're fun to watch. This team, the Eagles team, is painful to watch.
All right, Tom. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, the Jets won yesterday. They beat Tennessee. That's actually a big win. Before that, they were probably one of the worst teams in the league to watch. They were horrendous. But after, we'll see these draft choices that Joe Douglas has made if he gets him out of this. Now, again, we go back to this. We go round and round and round in circles here. All of the picks that were made during the Douglas era were not very good. There's a lot of bad picks during the Douglas era, right? I mean, if we're saying that Joe Douglas had a big hand in the Eagles, the picks he made here, when they were here, when Joe Douglas was here, those picks were not very good. Now, the guys they've got the last couple drafts, Quez Watkins, Jalen Reagor, Devonta Smith, all of those guys have been, Reagor of that three, I think, has been the worst so far. Devonta Smith had 122 yards yesterday. He had 70-plus yards in his first game. Smith looks like a player that is not a bust, all right? Let's just say it. I'm not saying he's a superstar. He looks like he's not a bust. How about that? Watkins looks like a player. Jalen Hurts, I don't know. You're sitting here telling me that the guy can't play. I don't think that's fair. Right? I don't think that's fair to say that Hargrave definitively can't play. Look, here's the thing. You're saying that drop back passer. You don't like the style of play in today's game because if you're not Jalen Hurts, you're not playing in this league right now. Most of these guys, unless you're the elite of the elite of the elite, most of these guys have a style of play that is conducive to the league now, being able to both make plays with your arm and your legs. And most of these guys, if they can't do that, they're not in the league right now. I think quarterback play in the league right now, I think we all think it's better than it is. Like Josh Allen, he makes plays with his arms and his legs, but he's got a very strong arm. But a lot of what he does is he makes plays with his feet. He can get out of the pocket. He can move. That Tua can't play. That's an idiotic comment. Tua stinks. I like Mac Jones. I think he's pretty good. I watched him last night. I watched him the first couple of weeks. I think of all the quarterbacks that's out there right now, he looks the most polished. But you know what Mac Jones can do? He can move a little bit. He's not a statue back there. The kid Wilson from the Jets, he don't do much for me. Burrow, he could play. Lamar Jackson, he could play. Baker Mayfield, he's okay. Obviously, Big Ben's at the end of the road. The Hurts right now is the least of their issues. And quite frankly, one of the issues this team has is they have an aging defense. On the offensive side of the ball, they have a couple of talented skill players. Smith, Watkins, Reagor, Goddard, Sanders, Gainwell. They've got talented skill players now. The offensive line with Mailata's young kid, Dickerson's a young kid, Herbig's a young kid, Driscoll's a young kid. They've got some guys on the offensive line that are younger players, so they can start turning their attention to the defensive side of the ball. They need to. Here's the problem. You could bring in Tom from Summers Point, okay? Tom, if you think you're the best GM out there, I can hire you to be the GM. You know what the owner's going to tell you? You are not taking a linebacker in the first round, so don't think about it. So then you're going to say, all right, then I don't want the job. Then you don't get the job. That's why Howie Roseman gets the job, because he has said to the owner, you don't want me to take a linebacker in the first round? I won't. The owner does not want them taking – you think Howie Roseman goes up to Jeff Lurie and says, Jeffrey, we are not taking a linebacker in the first round. What's Jeffrey going to say? Oh, you're right, Howie, we're not. No, of course he doesn't. That comes down from ownership. Ownership says, look, this is the philosophy that we're going to go by. We're not taking a linebacker in that first round. What do you guys think the GM can just walk into the owner's office and tell him how it's going to be? I mean, what kind of delusional world do you guys live in out there? You think Howie Roseman really has the ability to tell Jeff Lurie, this is the way we're doing it, or I'm out of here? Right? I mean, of course he doesn't get a chance to say that. It's not how it works. When he gets a chance, hey, they drafted Brandon Graham. They drafted Fletcher Cox. They drafted Josh Sweat. Those are three guys that have been pretty good. Now, Barnett, they missed on. I don't like Barnett a lick. He's out for me. Hargrave, they didn't draft him. They signed him. They have not hit on a safety, although, quite frankly, when was the last time they drafted a safety? Who's the last safety they drafted? In the first 2 rounds? What are you going back to Nate Allen? They took Jaquan Jarrett. When was that? The Temple kid. 609-403-0973. 3 up, 3 down on the way. I know it's easy and it's convenient. It's like the whole thing we go back to. You know, we blame the coaches. It's the coach's fault. And then it's Gabe Kapler's fault. Gabe Kapler goes and wins the division. So then it's not his fault. Maybe he's not as bad as we thought, right? He's not a bumbling idiot, Gabe Kapler, right? He obviously can win. So it's not the coach. It's not the manager, you know? I think the biggest problem with this team right now is the ownership group, which we never thought was a problem. We're beginning to think is more and more of an issue. 3 up, 3 down on the way this hour, brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Visit jerseyshorefcu.org for more information. Jeff Mosher, football at 4 on the way. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Follow me there and download the free mobile app. 10 to the top of the hour. Jeff Mosher in 10 minutes. Football at 4. This hour brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Go to jerseyshorefcu.org for more info. I'm Mike Gill on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You can always get us there. You can download the free mobile app and DM us through the phone. You can also hit us up on the phone line, 609-573-3776. Gabe's up next. Gabe, you're on 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, Gabe?
Hey, brother, you're like our therapy. You know that, right? So that's why we got to be able to call into you, instead of this text and stuff.
You're welcome to call me at any time, Gabe.
Well, listen, I'm listening to everybody, and sure, I can understand. And I was probably more on the side of Howie Roseman not getting the job done, but at the same time, he has hit on other players down in the middle of the rounds and at the end, especially with Jordan Mailata. But at the same time, I understand, because when you have a first-round pick, you need to hit on the first-round picks. And that's probably where the disconnect is with the fans and with that. Because you do. You have to hit. And I heard this from other people, too, that are in the industry. They're just like, as a GM, you need to hit on your first-round pick and find some diamonds in the rough down the road, in the later rounds.
Yeah.
That's where his problem is, his track record.
When they've been bad, when they've had a chance to nail top 10, 15 guys, they got Lane Johnson was 3 or 4, the times they've had higher picks, they got Lane Johnson, they got that. They haven't had that opportunity. So when they're drafting further back, when you win the Super Bowl and you're drafting at the bottom, when you're in the playoffs, you're drafted in the 20s, those guys are harder to hit on. It's when you're in the top 10 that you have to do a good job. And if you don't, that holds you back. The problem is, they went to the Super Bowl. They made the playoff. They made the playoffs again 3 straight years. They only had 5 picks because they traded for Wentz. So there's a lot that goes in there. And then when they get the chance, like you miss on a second-round pick, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I get it. It's frustrating that DK Metcalf was there. But every team in the league passed on him twice because he was a medical red flag.
Remember, the Patriots had 3 sixth-round picks, and they passed on Tom Brady twice in the 6th round before they took him in with the 3rd pick in the 6th round.
Right.
So that's how crazy that it is.
And then it balances out. Like you draft Dillard, and he isn't a starter, but you don't anticipate Mailata being a franchise left tackle in the 7th round, and now Dillard's playing, and he's showing you that he's not that bad either. So guess what?
I agree.
I understand the frustration because of you take Rieger and the other team takes Jefferson, and Jefferson ends up being really good, and Rieger doesn't look like he can play nearly as well. Well, you're picking in the 20s. Like you're not the anticipation that the guy at 21 is going to become the best receiver of the class. It doesn't happen all that often.
I get it. I totally get it. But I think that's where the problem is. And that's fine. I mean, you're not going to hit on every single pick.
Sure.
But on the, should we say the Hollywood pick, which is usually the first round, or the top 10 or top 12 picks, in the first round, you need to nail that every single time. There can't be any excuses on that.
You do. And the problem has been, how many times have they been in that spot? I mean, they took Devonta Smith at number 10 so far. It looks like he can play. They took Lane Johnson the last time when they were in the top 10 at number 4. They took Carson Wentz. Now the Wentz thing, right? Now the Wentz thing is a little odd. I mean, he took him. He was 13-3. They went to the Super Bowl, and then he kind of flamed out. And that's an oddity.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm not going to, make a decision on Hurts yet. I think, he's showing some things that he could do well and some things he still needs to work on. You got to remember, last year in his rookie year, he didn't even have a training camp.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know all the naysayers on this guy. You got to give this guy a fair chance. So I think this is his first year where you can start looking at him, okay? And then into his 3rd year, because the first year was just a wash for every rookie.
Well, look at it this way, Gabe, and I got to run. I appreciate the call, man. If we started making a decision on Josh Allen in his first year, we would be probably saying the guy can't play. Josh Allen was not very good as a rookie. And you're right. He came in last year with the COVID. He didn't have any mini camps or training camps, none of that stuff. That being said, I mean, right now, if you're making a decision on Hurts, and I said last week, if I had to make a decision on him, I don't think he would be the guy if I had to make a decision now. But I don't have to make a decision now. If I had to make a decision on Josh Allen after his first 7 games, he'd be gone. And Josh Allen might be the MVP of the league so far. Patience is a virtue, my friend, and many of us don't have it. I suggest you try to find how to get it.
20 years, how many NFC East titles, playoff appearances, and appearances in the NFC Championship game. Those are some of the metrics I look at, and I'll compare our record with almost anybody.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destination all season long at the Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Jeff Mosher is here from the Inside the Birds podcast with observations on an Eagles loss, which was expected. What was unexpected is 42 points again. I don't know. Is that unexpected to give up 42 points with this defense against that Chiefs offense?
Well, the Chiefs average about 30 points a game, and they were playing an Eagles defense that is not among the top 10 or 15. Well, actually, I guess after the first 2 games, they probably were, but realistically doesn't have a whole lot of playmaking talent and has struggled to stop the run. So if you thought the Chiefs might come into Philadelphia and score above average, then you would have expected something closer to 40 points. I thought that the Chiefs, I think I predicted them to win 34-26 or something like that. So it was sort of in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I get it. They're good. That's a good offense.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the problems and issues that Jonathan Gannon's group is having the last 2 games? Week 1 looked like a very good unit against the Atlanta Falcons. Week 2, they kept the team in the game. There were some things like some long drives, not a lot of points. Why the last 2 weeks does it look like they are in over their heads?
Well, obviously it's a copycat league, and over the last, you saw in week 1 that Atlanta did a great job in the first half running the ball against the Eagles. And the only reason why Atlanta stopped running the ball against the Eagles wasn't because of anything the Eagles did. It was other than going ahead offensively, right? And the Falcons fell behind by too many points and had to start passing. You saw at times in the Niners game, the run defense was good early, but then the second half, the Niners figured some things out, and you wonder if they had their full set of running backs that game, starting running backs, and not, a rookie making his first availability in Trey Sermon, and then the other kid who was the 5th-round pick rookie. You wonder if they would have done more damage. But clearly, Dallas then set the template for when you have a good offensive line and a good running back, that's how you attack the Eagles. The Eagles are playing a cover 2 defense, and it's funny how we have the argument from the other side every year, the discussion. Jim Schwartz plays cover 1. He brings a safety into the box. What that does is puts your cornerbacks on an island. And what happened would be the cornerbacks were constantly getting beat deep. How many times do we talk about the Eagles getting beat over the top? Well, Jonathan Gannon has a different style of defense. This is his own thing, by the way. He's not doing this just because Jim Schwartz did it differently. He wants to play a more Mike Zimmer-esque cover 2 or even Eberflus in Indianapolis. So you have a lighter box and you invite the run. You have to be able to stop the run better with less people at your disposal to stop the run, which means you need good personnel. You need good linebackers. You had Darius Leonard in Indianapolis, one of the best linebackers. In Minnesota, they had Eric Kendricks. They had Harrison Smith, a great safety, right? Sendejo at some point was a good run-stopping safety, and they had Anthony Barr. The Eagles don't have that. So I know people get frustrated, Mike, and I totally understand the how difficult it is to watch a scheme that seems soft and unaggressive, right? I understand how frustrating that is, and the alternative is to try to play the Chiefs and put more guys in and then go one-on-one with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and McCole Hardman, and we could just be having this argument about a 41-30 game just looking differently.
Yeah, that's a good point. Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, Football at 4. Now, let me ask you this question, because isn't being a coach saying, hey, these are the players I have, I'm going to utilize what they do well? It seems that John Gannon's saying, I don't care what they do well, you're going to play my system.
This is where I think he's caught between what his job is for the long haul and what his job is for today. And I would say we kind of saw this play out in 2013. Chip Kelly's the head coach. Billy Davis is the defensive coordinator. They moved from a 4-3 to a 3-4. But you move to a 3-4, you got guys like Trent Cole, guys like Brandon Graham, and some other personnel, Cedric Thornton, Benny Logan, who were not drafted for that kind of a scheme. So you had to kind of move players in and out, and the organization tried to help that transition, if you remember, by signing like a Connor Barwin and an Isaac Sopoaga, getting people that fit that scheme. But I wrote this down, I tweeted, I can't remember, but they gave up like 140 points in the first 4 games. It was bad. Everybody remembers that great opener against Washington where they scored all those points, right? But they forget that they lost the next 3 games and they were blown out by Kansas City and went to Denver and lost 55-20. I mean, they gave up over 140 points in a month. That was bad. Then they came back and won the division. So to answer your question, Jonathan Gannon's here and Sirianni are here to implement a scheme and a culture and bring their philosophies to this team. And if he just starts being something different and doing things different that are then he's not getting these players prepared for the future. And he's also not evaluating which players can hack it and which can't. So I know it sucks, but I honestly, as I say all the time, if you thought the Eagles were going to be a really good team and a lot better, that's on you, not them, because they did not make the type of moves. They did not make enough moves to be really competitive this year with good teams.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, you look around, the problem is, like, they have a bunch of good players. They don't have great players, and they have a lot of average players. I mean, you look around, Brandon Graham's probably your best player. Now he's hurt. Fletcher Cox, what do you think about him? Everybody's panicking. Is it that he's slowing down? Are teams saying, look, no, he's the best guy, and we're going to game plan for him? So why is Fletcher Cox not statistically doing much?
I mean, I think it's everything. I think he's a year older. He's not the guy he was 5 or 6 years ago. He does see a whole lot of double teams, but he's getting pushed back in the run game because he's playing a different technique and hand usage. I mean, the Eagles, again, had some talented players on defense in 2013. D'Amico Ryans was a good player. Trent Cole was a good player. Brandon Graham's a good player. But they did not fit that scheme that they were running. And Fletcher Cox has been, for the last God knows how many years, because not only was there Schwartz, but there was also Jim Washburn before at one point, right before Chip Kelly. But he's been flying up the field every single play, fly up the field, fly up the field, fly up the field. Now, all of a sudden, overnight, people expect that he's going to be a 2-gapper and read and react, and it's just going to come naturally to him. That takes time. I mean, here's another thing I talk about all the time. The year the Giants won the Super Bowl, the first of 2 Super Bowls for Eli Manning, Steve Spagnuolo was the defensive coordinator, right? He had just come back. He had gotten fired from where he was. They gave up like 88 points in their first 3 games, and they had Tuck, Umanura, and Strahan. Why? They're playing an entirely new scheme. And so I know it sucks, but you got to give this team some time to figure out an entirely new scheme.
That said, I mean, I know Darius Slay hinted at that yesterday. I mean, I don't know the exact quote, but he hinted at, hey, anytime there is a new system, let me see if I can pull it up with me. He says,
that was my question, by the way.
All right. So he says, yeah, I mean, typically, as you know, with a new staff, you have to learn. It's still early in the season. That's a good thing. But we have to start now. So that being said, of the guys they have here, how many are long for the next system, I guess, or his system is really the question.
It's a great question. And to be honest, and any criticism is fair to say, well, if they need different players to fit this scheme, what confidence do you have? Because it looks right now that the kind of player that they really need to have are really good linebackers, good safeties, someone who can play the box and the post, interchangeable, get down there, make the tackle. And of course, good corners. You always need good corners. So what evidence have the Eagles shown over the last 20 years that they're drafting good corners, good safeties, and good
That's a good point there.
linebackers?
So where does that come? Is that an organizational philosophy? Is that Jeffrey Lurie? I mean, if Howie Roseman went to Jeff Lurie and said, look, I really think we got to take Micah Parsons, is Jeff Lurie saying, no, we're not drafting a linebacker? Is that Roseman who doesn't value the linebacker? Where does that philosophy come from? Because obviously, they don't value linebackers. Right. Who doesn't value linebackers? Roseman, Lurie, who?
I would say yes. I mean, look, but you know the answer to the question because we can talk about round 2 years ago, Jalen Hurts versus Jeremy Chin. Jeremy Chin was the personnel staff want, but the Lurie Roseman want was Jalen Hurts. Now, that might wind up being good if you got yourself the right quarterback. And then this year, second round, Landon Dickerson. You had the kid from Notre Dame. What's his name with the J? They call him Joker, J-O-K, Jeremiah Owasu.
Yeah, Owasu.
All right, Owasu. But this team values offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and quarterbacks. And you can say that they have a pretty good track record of those positions,
Right,
but then you can also say that they don't get the other
but
guys.
where is that like? Is that from Andy Reid? Did Andy Reid give that to Jeff Lurie, and now Jeff Lurie keeps that and says, look, this is what we've done under Andy, our most successful, and that's what we're going to continue to do?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've always known, Howie Roseman came up through the organization at a time when Andy Reid's the head coach. And, when Jeffrey and Joe Banner when Jeffrey bought the team and Joe Banner was in charge, I mean, it was only about a year before they hired, Andy Reid, and then had their best run of success until the Super Bowl with Andy Reid. So yes, a lot of what they get is from Andy Reid. Now, don't go blaming Andy Reid though, because he's got Tyrann Mathieu out there, right? I mean, there have been times where L'Jarius needs a good cornerback. They've done a good job in Kansas City. I know they're kind of lousy right now defensively, but in general, they've been able to put some pretty good linebackers and safeties and corners on the field when they need to.
Well, they didn't draft Mathieu.
No, but they prioritized him in free agent. And yeah, sure. So Howie did that with Malcolm Jenkins, and so he did a good job there. And maybe they're obviously going to have to do that along with drafting well too.
Right, and that seems like if you look at the Eagles, what did you mentioned they went out and got Malcolm Jenkins. They traded for Darius Slay because those are areas where they don't want to draft.
Yes. And so I always say, though, if you're not going to do that, you have to figure out other ways to get them. Now, there's a lot of tricks of the trade here, and there's a lot of discussions to be had that will be had in the offseason about once you start fixing those areas and getting that, your other big problem is that you're probably your 5 or 6 best players on the team right now are old, to be honest with you. If everybody's healthy, you write a list of your top 5 or 6 players on the Eagles. You're starting with Kelsey, talking about Lane Johnson, talking about Brandon Brooks, you're talking about Brandon Graham. So you're going to have to find replacements for those guys in the next 2 or 3 years as you build this team up.
Yeah. On the defensive side of the ball, Graham, you can't count on him anymore. Fletcher Cox, you can't go into a season with him as your top defensive player. That's obvious.
Right.
You need to fix the linebackers. Your secondary, I mean, Slay and Nelson. I mean, Slay, to me, he's playing well, but he's over 30. He's going to be
right. Exactly. By the time this team is ready, that you could see why he's frustrated, right? And he understands there's learning curve, but he also understands he's not getting any younger.
Right. He's like, I got traded here thinking I got out of Detroit and that whole mess to come to a place that was winning, and now I'm coming to a place that is now becoming a team that is rebuilding here. So that being said, the defense has its issues, but the offense the last 2 weeks, I thought Sirianni was a big problem in Dallas and San Francisco. I thought his game plans were terrible. I thought his game plan was better yesterday, but still could be better.
Right. So the question that I think we need to really learn is, was the game plan different and therefore better, or were the 2 game plans that have succeeded so far also against 2 defenses that pretty much stink right now? That's the reality. They face 2 good defenses, they look completely out of whack. They face 2 bad defenses, they look good. So I think the Carolina Panthers are kind of a good test because they have good defensive players, and they were good for the first 3 weeks, but they were also playing lousy teams. So I don't think they're great, but I don't think they're bad.
I mean, quite frankly, right, I mean, we're frustrated because we always want to win, but this team didn't have a lot of expectations. And quite frankly, I mean, did you think you were beating San Fran, Dallas, or Kansas City? Like, no.
I did not. I know some people did or saw these as coin flip games. I didn't. I felt the Eagles could realistically only win 2 of their first 6 or 7 games, and we'll see. I mean,
right now,
look, the only difference, Adam, Mike, real quick, the only difference I'll say from the 2013 team that figured it out as it gone along. You remember Nick Foles became the quarterback, and then there's 7 touchdowns against Oakland, and you go to Green Bay and you win there. That schedule got so light. They had the Packers had Scott Tolzien and Seneca Wallace at quarterback as Rodgers was hurt. The Raiders were a mess when they went out there and played them. This schedule doesn't feel like it gets overly light in stretches. Like, yeah, you got a game against the Lions. Okay, but the Saints are going to be formidable. The Chargers are certainly formidable. The Raiders look really good.
Yeah, but that being said, you're right. But I'll say, all right, Kansas City is a Super Bowl contender. I think Dallas is a Super Bowl contender. I know people don't want to say it. I had them in my Fine 5 last week. That team's good. They're just legitimately good. They've got a young player on defense that they can scheme around now. They got a guy in the secondary where they were horrible last year, and they got weapons all over. San Francisco is just a gritty, solid team.
Yes.
You could find out, like, Carolina's just not flat out better than you. They might be slightly better. They're not flat out better. The only team left that you're going to say is just flat out talent-wise better is Tampa. Now, there's other teams that are going to be slightly better, but at least you'll be able to kind of see a measuring stick. I don't think you get a measuring stick against Dallas and Kansas City. They kick your ass because they're better than you.
I would probably put the Chargers as a pretty decent favorite going into that game.
All right.
I'm trying to think who else.
They got Tampa Bay, the Raiders, the Lions, the Chargers, Denver. I mean, the Saints lost to the Giants yesterday, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I know, but the problem, Mike, is that in general, it's tough to go and win on the road, and some of these coin flip games are road games. Carolina's a road game. Las Vegas is a road game. Denver's a road game. You're not winning those 3 games on the road. It's just the statistics say that you're very unlikely to win all 3 of those games and be lucky.
I'm not talking about winning the games. I'm talking about kind of get a measuring stick of where you are.
Absolutely.
You know, like, how far away are you? It's hard to, like, you could say I'm far away up against Kansas City. Of course I'm far away to Kansas City. They're in the Super Bowl. I'm not. Like, we're not there. But how far are you from that next tier? And I think that's where you can find out with Carolina, Vegas, the Saints, who are, they lost to freaking the Giants yesterday. You can't lose to the Giants. Come on.
I know. Wait, didn't they destroy somebody in the season opener, though?
They
I
beat
can't
the
remember.
Packers.
Yeah. So week 1 is such a hoodwink. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers beat Buffalo in week 1, and everybody was,
And look at Philadelphia. Like, if you're just saying Philly against Atlanta on the road, they just Rochambeau them. Atlanta goes to New York and beats the Giants, and then yesterday it's, 32-30 against Washington? So you would say, well, Philly's clearly ahead of where those teams are, which isn't the case. It's just like, I think we just have to kind of take a foot off the gas a little on how bad they are, how far away they are, and let what this year is supposed to be, an evaluation.
I totally agree with you. I think this is supposed to be an evaluation year. It's supposed to be a growing pains year. You're going to find out some things that you like. You're going to find out some things you don't like. And then you have the discussion in the offseason of whether they're equipped to be able to fix their mistakes the right way.
What you think of, obviously he makes the comment, Sirianni, that Hurts was, one of the best games he's ever seen. Is he growing? Is he getting better? Was that a special game that we witnessed yesterday?
I thought it was a very good game, efficient game. I think the game plan really helped, and I think I've only been able to watch first quarter and a half so far, and I'm kind of charting some things. I think on his first 8 or 9 completions that I saw, that they were completed to the guy he was meant to throw to, because the design of the play was meant to get that guy open using either motion, misdirection, play action, RPO.
I just want to stop you real fast, okay? Because I was in the car for the first drive. I'm listening on the radio. The way Reese and Quick made it out to be was that that first drive was very well designed and some really good design plays. Did you see that?
Yes.
Now,
absolutely.
The one thing I said from listening on the radio, this is why I can't listen to the game on the radio as much as I like to. I'm in the car. I have to watch is the throw he misses. They said that the throw was high. I'm trying to get a view of, does he need to make that throw in the back of the end zone? On the radio, he misses them high.
Zach Ertz, is that the one? Yeah, that's got to be a touchdown.
I'm saying that's what I wanted to see from you. Does that throw need to be completed?
Absolutely.
And who's it on? Is it on Ertz or is it on Hurts?
No, he had time. Ertz was wide open. Like, I get it. You're not always going to put it right in the guy's chest, but I mean, that one should have been in his chest.
No, totally. Like, I'm asking because I'm going off the radio call, and when just hearing it, the throw was high. But sometimes you're like, well, could the guy have caught it? Or is it a simple pitch and catch that you have to make?
Yeah, I mean, look, does DeAndre Hopkins make that play? Maybe, but I mean, you're supposed to make it easy for your tight end when you have the wide open lane to do it, and he didn't.
Okay, Jeff Mosher, football at 4. Other than that, I mean, 4/5 of your offensive line was out. I thought
offensive line played well.
Played well, right? Zavonta Smith, other than, They had 3 touchdowns taken off the board yesterday. I mean, how different's the game? They go 3 for 6 in the red zone, 3 touchdowns taken off. It's a weird game. I don't leave this game thinking, oh my gosh, I just leave this game saying Kansas City's just better than you are right now.
Absolutely. I know that people, like you're saying with the 3 touchdowns, I know that there's missed opportunities and penalties, and it certainly could have been a closer game, but I have zero confidence that the Eagles would have ever stopped Kansas City had they really needed to come up with. I mean, they had a chance even late in the game, the 3rd and 6, and they get pressure, and somehow you're not even within 5 miles of Tyreek Hill on that play. I mean, the Chiefs had seven possessions and scored 6 touchdowns.
The Barnett penalty kills you too, man.
That was rough. Now, he
it's
might have been blocked into him, but still.
Yeah,
rough.
just like the video said last week, it's always him.
I know,
right?
I know. But you know what?
Did anybody ask him about that?
Yeah, and I know he said he felt that in that type of play, as opposed to the other ones, it wasn't reckless. It was more part of the action happening at the time.
Yeah,
but still not acceptable. But really, Josh Sweat had a really bad. Josh Sweat had an offside on his own sack that set that enabled another touchdown. So
now,
I mean, it's bad.
Sirianni indicated today that he had some tough conversations in the defensive room.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I'm guessing he coaches. He told his coaches that they got to figure this out. Like, but
you're asking who guys
question.
are getting benched or that.
Perfect question. We'll see.
All right. Last one.
By the way, you got Ryan Kerrigan. See, sometimes I feel like fans, like, you got to see some of these things that in your mind don't make sense and funnel the criticism that Ryan Kerrigan has not made a play. Does Ryan Kerrigan suck? How about the fact that Ryan Kerrigan's playing like a hand in the dirt 5 technique? He's never played that. This guy's used to standing up and rushing the passer. But because of Brandon Graham's injury, he's got to get down there, try to be somebody he's not. That's not his fault.
I said that earlier. I said you got Kerrigan playing a position that he had no intention of playing. Guess what? If you told him, hey, we're going to sign you and play with your hand on the ground, he's going to say, I'm going to sign someplace else.
Listen, if the Eagles are 3-8 after 11 and you're coming up to the trade deadline and somebody wants to give you something from Ryan Kerrigan, do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sirianni said the language was harsher today when discussing penalties with his team. I mean, what's that mean? You throw the F word in there?
Well, I think every time rock, paper, scissors happened, he was throwing rock. And whenever you know how like some people do it, like you take your hand and you smash it against the other person's hand if you have the rock and they have the scissor. He was a little extra on. Right. I have to think that he.
Oh, man.
But you raised the perfect question. I understand that that's what he says, but we know that
what does he do?
Talking without action and honestly, what are they supposed to do? Take Derek Barnett off the field now and play who?
Right. Well, the fans are, play Patrick Johnson, play Tyreek Jackson. What's his name?
They're actually playing these guys, though. That's the thing. It's like you play them more, you're going to do even worse.
All right. The Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning. Check it out with reaction to this latest Eagles loss and hear what the guys had to say with it about the game. Mosher, Kaplan. Tomorrow, Andrew DeCecco's here. What time does Sirianni talk, by the way?
On Mondays?
Yes.
Yeah, that thing has been 2:30 to 2:45 in that neighborhood. It's not exactly. He's not right on the dot.
Yeah, well, so they don't send out the media schedule. I used to get it all the time. I don't get that one anymore.
You know what? Call them because they changed up their email blast thing.
I get every other email from them. Everything else. I get all the transcripts. I get all the notes. I get it. The only one I don't get is the media schedule for the week.
Who did you piss off?
All right, Jeff Mosher in the Inside the Birds podcast. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, the football at 4. Andrew's here tomorrow. Jeff's back on Wednesday. Eagles-Panthers. We'll be talking to our friend Colin Thompson down the road.
Nice. CT.
All right, man. Good to see you.
Does he run for 100 yards against the Eagles? I know he's not a running back, but I mean.
No, you know what they're going to do? A little shovel pass to him.
Hey, he's got a chance to score.
I'll tell you want to make money? Every Panthers game, put down $5 on Colin Thompson as an time touchdown score. At the end of it, even if you lose 5 every game, you're going to win. He's going to score 1 this year, right?
He is.
Right?
He definitely is.
Get 1. All right, Moshe. See ya. Jeff Mosher, football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Hopefully you're enjoying your Monday. I get it. Like, you want to be frustrated. You want to blame people. You want to have people be accountable, which is fair. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. We can call out people. I'll do 3 up, 3 down here on the other side. My 3 up and 3 down for this win and loss. Who were 3 that stood out? Who were 3 that didn't play very well? But this was a year that, as we said, look, I said if the Eagles' offensive line can stay healthy, they can be competitive. The line lost 4 out of 5 players. And they scored 30 points yesterday. They weren't scoring 30 points last year in a game. It wasn't happening. Sports Bash this hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets, take your profit, find out how. PropSwap.com. You know that whole Salvatore Perez? They tied in the home run thing. So that guy won $12,000 on a $37 prop swap bet. He is the prop swapper of the century. He bets $37, right? He bets $37 on Salvatore Perez to win the home run championship way back in like the beginning of the year. He now has that ticket the last week of the baseball season, and somebody bought the ticket for $12,000 off of him. That's a prop swapper right there. At Mike Gill Show. Follow me right now. Do it. More Sports Bash on the way. Sports Best 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. At Mike Gill Show. Follow me on Twitter. Download the free mobile app through the Apple Store or Google Play. You can message us through the app as well. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. That's the way you can give a call to the studios, and we'll get you through. 3 up, 3 down here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Our 3 up, 3 down today. It's brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. All right, 3 up, 3 down. The Eagles defense gave up 41 on Monday to Dallas. They came back and gave up 42 to Kansas City. It wasn't all bad, though. The offense showed some signs of life. Jalen Hurts, 32 of 48. Josh, give me that stat over here again. I can't remember all those numbers. Too many numbers for me to remember, but I think it's a stat. You know, we talked on Friday a little bit at the beginning of the show about patience and having patience and all this stuff. You know, Gabe Kapler, we wanted to get rid of him. He was horrible. He went and won the division. You know, like, you're not always right, fan? You're not always right. And just because fans, you know, I came in on Sunday. I had to stop in the studio for something yesterday. And I said, yo, you know, Kapler won the division. And I was like, would Phillies fans take Kapler back? Like, if you had the chance to take Kapler back, would you take him back? And the answer you get from people is an unacceptable answer. He's not a Philly guy, right? That's the answer you get. That is why that answer holds no water of him being a Philly guy. Charlie Manuel wasn't a Philly guy, right? Gabe Kapler's not a Philly guy. You know why? Because he knows what he's doing. That's why. He's going to be the manager of the year, right? He's going to win that award.
Absolutely.
He's going to win the award for manager of the year.
He has to.
He's the best manager in the league. And us idiots, not me, you. I didn't want Kapler gone. I didn't think he was great. I just didn't think he was the problem. You know what the problem with this team was? The same problem they have now. They're not good enough. It's not Gabe Kapler's fault. You rockhead. Has nothing to do with Gabe Kapler not being the right guy or the Philly guy or this guy. You give him enough talent, and Gabe Kapler can win. Just like Jalen Hurts. Now he's not the guy. What's the stat on Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts now has 3 of his first 8 starts in the NFL.
3 of his first 8.
With at least 2 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Production, no turnovers.
That is more in his first 8 starts than the following quarterbacks: Peyton Manning, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Ben Roethlisberger, and Aaron Rodgers.
All those guys are good.
And they all have MVP awards. Now, we're not saying that Jalen Hurts is going to be those guys. But the point is that he's not what certain people think he is.
No. Look, to me, right now, I'm going to do 3 up, 3 down. Okay, here's my 3 up. 1, 3 up. Number 1, Jalen Hurts. He played one of his best games as an Eagles. He had 387 yards. He had 32 completions. He was also the leading rusher. This guy's like Bugs Bunny out there.
That's also the most passing yards he's ever had in a game in his career.
He didn't turn the ball over. He was sacked 3 times. I thought a couple of the sacks. I thought the 1 4th down where he threw the ball away. He needs to learn on that. I thought Nick Sirianni, who said this was his best game, I like Hurts afterwards. I don't care that it was my best game. We lost the game, he said. I have to do more. I have to do better. So he had 387 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's about the one reason on offense that they moved the ball, and he says, I have to do better. He stood out yesterday. He was 3 up. 3 up. Number 2, Javon Hargrave. Scott Grayson got it wrong. I love Scott. His grades are usually pretty much on point. Javon Hargrave should have got an A, maybe a B for yesterday. He continues to be a beast in the middle. He had another 6 tackles yesterday. He had a sack. He had a tackle for a loss. He had a quarterback hit. He now has 24 tackles, 6 for a loss, and 5 sacks on the season. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the game right now. There's no way you give him a D. Come on, Grayson, you're better than that. He's the first defensive tackle in league history, okay, to put up 20 tackles and have 5 sacks in the first 4 games of the season. Think about that. There is no other defensive tackle ever. Okay? Not Aaron Donald. Not Fletcher Cox. Not John Randall. Not Cortez Kennedy. Not Warren Sapp. None of those guys. Thank you. None of those defensive tackles. I got some more. You want some more defensive tackles that I can just start pulling out? What, Bryant Young? You want, Tim Crumry? Yeah, Dan Big Daddy Wilkerson, Richard Seymour, Keith Millard, Ray Childress. I'm trying to think of my football cards back when I was like a kid. Dan Hampton, Joe Klecko, Aaron Donald right now, Geno Atkins with the Bengals a couple of years ago. I mean, he's not on the same level as some of these guys. John Randall's Hall of Famer, Cortez Kennedy, I brought him up. Warren Sapp, as I mentioned. None of those guys. Not one. Bob Lilly. You want to go back to Bob Lilly? You want me to pull him out? You want Mean Joe Green? None of those guys have produced the way Javon Hargrave is right now. Not one. Javon Hargrave's 3 up, number 2. Number 3, Eagles tight ends. The duo of Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. They had 11 passes for 116 yards and a touchdown. Ertz had 6, Goddard had 5 and a touchdown, and he had a second touchdown called back because of Andre Dillard being down the field. If they can get the tight ends involved in the offense, like I've been saying, 30 points is fine. You can win with 30 points. Last year, hard to win with that offense. This offense is doing their job right now, except for last week. I thought they had a tough week against the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to happen. You're going to have a stinker. This wasn't a stinker from their offense. They got the tight end involved, and I applaud them for it.
The Eagles have scored at least 30 points twice this year. The most points they scored all of last year was 29. They averaged 20.9 points per game last year.
They were so bad offensively last year, they had no chance to compete. They can compete with this offense. Down, 3 down right now. Number 1, red zone offense. As much as their offense scored 30 and they're really good, they should have been better. They were 5 for 6 in the red zone before the game today. They had that one in San Francisco. Yesterday, 3 for 6, unacceptable, bad. They're on the 1-yard line. You got Jalen Hurts. Let him freaking run the ball in. Give him a chance. If he gets stopped on a quarterback sneak once or twice or 3 times, fine. Then you can say back to the fans, that play didn't work, but you haven't tried it yet. And Hurts is your most dependable player right now on the offensive side of the ball. I get it. Jason Kelsey's not a big center. You got Landon Dickerson playing guard. The guy's 360 pounds. Run right behind him. That's 1. 3 down, number 2, the whole defense. It's not a secret that the Eagles' defense struggled the last 2 weeks. 83 points. Is it a lack of talent or a poor game plan? Well, the Chiefs ran for 200 yards on the ground. Tyreek Hill was able to have a field day. He caught 11 passes for 186 yards and 3 touchdowns. I hope you had him on your fantasy team because I had Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs did not punt at all on Sunday. They were 9 of 10 on 3rd down and 5 for 5 in the red zone. 6 instead of 3. That could be the difference in the game. They went 5 for 5. You went 3 for 6. Can you imagine if you went 5 for 6 in the red zone? We might have been talking about a 48-42 win. That defense has to get better, and Jonathan Gannon has to figure it out. His offense is giving him a chance to compete. His defense has to pick up the slack. Number 3, 3 down, the penalties. Major issue with this team. 3 penalties, wiped out 3 touchdowns, self-inflicted wounds. Nick Sirianni said it yesterday. They have to stop. He said, I know I sound the same, but it's still true. We have to stop the self-inflicted wounds. If they don't have the self-inflicted wounds, where is this team? They're probably better than they are right now. If they don't have the self-inflicted wounds against San Francisco, do they win that game? If they don't have the self-inflicted wounds against Kansas City, are we having a different conversation today? It's possible. That's 3 up, 3 down. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. It's brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play, and you can message us through the phone. No update on Lane Johnson today, by the way. He was out for personal reasons yesterday, so not the ankle. What else do we got today? Well, one thought every game, Casey Joyner and Jeff Kerr on the NFC East. The 8 Ball is watching. If you could rewind, would you rather have Parsons or Smith? I don't think that's fair. I mean, this team needs Parsons probably, but they need Smith too. They need both. So it's not fair to ask which one I'd rather have. You need both. And they've missed so many times on receivers. It looks like they finally got one. So it's hard. It's not fair to say that. Do I want Parsons? Yeah, this team needs Micah Parsons. Although, where are they playing him? Is he playing linebacker? Is he playing end? Is he as good at linebacker as he has been at end? That's a tough one. Can I have them both? Next year, they're going to have 3 picks in the top, probably top 10. Thanks for chiming in. Keep them coming. I'll open up the text board on the other side. Send me your text right now, 609-403-0973, and I will read off every text that comes in and reacts to them until 5 o'clock tonight here on the Sports Bash. 449 Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. This hour brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. So I just said, give me a text. Give me your thought on the game, something that really stands out. I feel like everybody must be sitting in the same car that sent me this text. Like I get the same text at the same time. And they all say, okay, well, this is what one says. Mike, why do the Eagles refuse to give the ball to Miles Sanders? That's one. Next text. Why are we not using any of our three running backs? Miles Sanders is a straight-up stud. They need to game plan around him better. I like Gainwell, too. What happened to Boston Scott? I don't understand. The next text says, Mike, what's your opinion on Sanders? Probably an unpopular opinion, but I think he's bottom of the league running back. All right. So let's do this. Let's answer all of those because obviously they're all asking about the running back and the whole situation there. This is what I will tell you. I think the way they use Sanders both this year and last year tells you what they think of Sanders. You might think that he's great. You might think that he's this, that, and the other. Doug Peterson didn't use him, and now the new coaching staff isn't using him either. Is it that, yes, he'll hit the home run ball, but does he not, churn out the yards? Do they want him to do 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards? They don't trust? I don't think they trust him. This text message from Mike in Ocean City says, Mike, what's your opinion on Sanders? Probably an unpopular opinion, but I think he's a bottom of the league running back. He's absolutely struggles to run north and south. Time after time, he's bumping to run outside and run 17 yards, 15 yards sideways, and then a 2-yard gain. The play calling isn't doing him any favors, but why rely on a guy who you got 13 yards on 7 touches? You put him in the pass game, he does better, but he still has issues catching the ball. Why are people so high on him? I think he's a rollback at best. Gainwell may take his job. Mike in Ocean City, I think you're closer to being correct than the other guys. I don't think the Eagles think much of Miles Sanders. I think that's the problem. He breaks off these long runs, 70 yards, 80 yards. He's got explosion, but I don't think he's a consistent back, and I think that's their problem with him. I don't think Peterson trusted him, and I don't think Sirianni trusts him either. When they're in the red zone, who's on the field? Gainwell. The 2-minute offense, who's on the field? Gainwell. So I don't think they look at Sanders as the guy you guys look at him as. Now, you might say, why not? I think the proof is kind of in the pudding. He had 1.9 yards per carry yesterday. If he's not breaking off a long one, he's not really a productive back. So I think the one thing that we have to understand is he is a big play back, Miles Sanders. And you wonder if the Eagles are trying to limit his touches and then hoping that in 6, 7, 8 carries that 1 or 2 of those is a big one. Because I don't think they think his other 6 carries are doing much for them. I think you're going to see more of Gainwell. I think Gainwell is the guy that Nick Sirianni, drafted. I think Gainwell is the guy that Nick Sirianni feels fits his offense a little better. So to answer all 3 of those questions that all had to do with Sanders, why are we not using Sanders? Straight up stud? I don't think they agree with you. What's my opinion on Sanders? I think Sanders probably is, as you mentioned, a mid-level back. I think we're finding out more and more that Sanders is just okay. I think to me, Miles Sanders is Reese Hoskins. Reese Hoskins hit 18 home runs in 50 games. So now Phillies fans think he's like Babe Ruth. Reese Hoskins stinks. Reese Hoskins hits a lot of home runs. He doesn't hit for average. He's just an okay player. Miles Sanders, what he does is he dazzles you with the big run. But I think the coaching staff is telling you all you need to know. Doug Peterson didn't use him. Last year in big moments, Who was on the field? It wasn't Miles Sanders. They don't trust him. He fumbles too much. I think that Eagles fans remember the big, long runs, but they don't remember everything in between. I think that's the answer to the question. 609-403-0973. I'll ask Casey Joyner what he sees in Miles Sanders. Should they be using him more? Don't forget, Eagles and Panthers coverage this Sunday starts at noon with the Eagles Radio Network, followed by Merrill Reese and Mike Quick right here on 97.3 ESPN. Your home for Eagles football. Tonight, we've got Monday Night Football, Raiders and Chargers. I don't know what the spread is tonight. What's the spread tonight? You know? Chargers are at home. Kind of like the Chargers tonight. I think like this is one of those games where the Chargers just get into one. Chargers are favored by 3. I like the Chargers tonight. I'm not sure that I believe in the Raiders yet. Casey Joyner coming up. One thought every game. It's coming up next here on the Sports Bash.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
All right, 5 o'clock hour here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the app in the Apple Store or Google Play. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. The land of confusion. That's what the defense looks like. Very confused. We'll look into what happened yesterday with the defense. Is Miles Sanders a good back? Are they not using him enough? Should they be getting more from Miles Sanders in the run game? One thought every game. We'll go a little deeper on the Eagles' loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. 42-30. Was it closer than you thought? Casey Joyner is with us here. One thought every game and a little deeper look at the Eagles' loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. 42-30, Casey. You know, the Eagles had their shots, a lot of penalties again. They had 3 touchdowns wiped out, but 42-30, was it, I don't know, was it more competitive than you thought?
No, honestly, because it was 42-23, and they got that last touchdown to get it close and things. And think about it, if that fumble at the end of the first half, where they fumble the ball, fumble the kickoff, and it's on the 15-yard line, if Kansas City recovers that fumble and goes in and scores, would have been 28-13 at that point. I just think that the Eagles, I think that the Chiefs could have put the foot on the gas and won this game even more impressively than they did.
All right, I got a lot of questions right before you came on. What's your opinion of Miles Sanders? Unpopular opinion. I think he's a bottom of the league running back. Another question is, why are we not using Sanders more? I think he's a straight up stud. Got another question. Wants to know, why don't they use Miles Sanders more? What is your thought on the Eagles run game, Miles Sanders in particular?
Miles Sanders last year finished in the top 10 in my good blocking yards per attempt metric. That measures how effective a back is when you give him quality run blocking. It's an important metric because good blocking plays are generally 4 to 5 times more productive than bad blocking plays. You have to have good blocking. He maximizes his productivity when he gets those sorts of plays. He had, his GBYPA in the first couple weeks wasn't very good. It has increased since, although he's not being used very often. I just think the Eagles have decided that they're not going to be a run-heavy team. It's not because they don't think Sanders is a good back. It's because they think that the passing game is the way to go. And that can work if you have the right talent. But the way that they're set up on offense and defense, that's not the way they need to be playing football right now.
Yeah, I know they ran the ball against yesterday. He did not do much. He had 7 carries for 13 yards, 3 for Gainwell for 31. So they had 10 carries with their running backs, which is up from 3 the week before. But 4/5 of their offensive line was out yesterday. That being said, it seemed that the offense, 30 points with 4/5 of your offensive line out, there's something to build on there.
There is something to build on. It's not like they shouldn't go vertical and they shouldn't go for the deep passes. Again, Devontae Smith, if he doesn't step out of bounds in that one play, he scores a touchdown, shades of a couple weeks ago. So it's not like they don't want to go vertical. It's just, if you're going vertical on offense and you're trying to do that type of approach, the other team is usually going to match you and try and do that same thing. Why are you trying to do that when you've got Tyreek Hill on the other side? I just don't get it. And the funny thing is that if you look at vertical passing in this game, if you look at plays that are throwing 11 or more yards downfield, that's the definition of vertical pass. The Eagles yesterday, Patrick Mahomes only had 8 attempts on vertical passes. He completed 6 for 157 yards and a touchdown. So it's not even like the Chiefs were going vertical as often as they could. That's why I think if they would have been more aggressive, they could have done even more. But what they said is, Eagles, you want to sit back there in that two deep coverage? You want to sit back there in that shell coverage? We're going to run the ball at you at will. And that's what scares me the most about this team. Not how the offense played, but how the front seven on defense, they couldn't do a thing to stop the Chiefs' run blocking, and it was just straight ahead blocking.
Yeah, 9 of 10 on third down, Kansas City, 5 for 5 in the red zone. Defense seems to be a big problem. And you just got to chronicle it. Do they not have the talent, or does Jonathan Gannon's scheme not fit what he has? I mean, there's a tough balance that, hey, they ran last year with Schwartz. They brought that safety in the box, and then you got beat a lot X plays. Now they're not getting beat as much over the top because guess what? If they played the Jim Schwartz defense yesterday, I think we'd be talking about Tyreek Hill with 250 yards. So I don't know. It's like the chicken or the egg here with this defense and the scheme with Gannon and what he's got, because they don't have good linebackers, which is a big problem.
They don't. And part of the problem is that at least with Schwartz, you knew this is what I'm going to get up the field. I'm going to make plays. I'm going to have a dynamic defense that just is going to have an impact. And yeah, you were going to give up some big plays. You were going to make a lot of big plays. The Gannon defense seems to be, we're going to sit back, we're going to play in the shell defense. And the whole mentality of defense just seems to be, let's not give up a big play. And Kansas City said, and Kansas City's faced this all the time. Teams play too deep against them all the time because, again, you're trying to stop Hill, you're trying to stop Hardman, you're trying to stop all the deep threats, and they have to run the ball. And they'll say, fine, we'll be patient and we'll run the ball at you. And you have to be more aggressive than the Eagles were against the Chiefs offensive line, because the Chiefs offensive line, talent-wise, is easily top 10, probably top 5 in the league as far as talent-wise, and they're starting to play to that level. So you have to be more aggressive at that. You can't be passive, and that's why I got the Eagles rush defense yesterday. They were passive and sitting back, and that's why Kansas City just kept running the ball all game.
Well, it seems like, Jonathan Gannon saying, look, my best players are up front. The problem is if they're not getting pressure, then he's in real trouble, and he's relying on mediocre linebackers, and I think I'm being kind, to be too big of a part of this defense. So how do you balance, like, this is what we do, this is what my scheme is, I don't have the talent to play my scheme. The bigger picture is this is what we want to be. I'm not going to just change my scheme because for this year, this is what you gave me, right?
Bill Belichick and Woody, Bill Belichick always says that the less adaptable you are, the better you better be at what it is that you're good at. In other words, if you say, look, we're not going to be adaptable and flexible, we're just going to do a couple of different things, you better be really good at that. The Eagles aren't really good at playing this type of coverage. They have guys who are one-gapping defenders. The linebackers aren't very good, so fine, assign them one gap. When you start to play that two-gap stuff up front, you say, okay, we're going to go ahead and just take on two blockers, and when we're going to have the linebackers, they can read either gap, you're actually putting more pressure on them in some ways because they have to go read the gaps. If I'm the Eagles, I want to go back to one gap. I want to go back to getting my front seven just getting up the field. I'd rather try and be disrupting the plays and saying, hey, I'm going to have my secondary try and stop people. Look at it yesterday against Kelsey. They stopped Kelsey pretty well, so they can do some things well, and their secondary can do certain things well. But if you're just sitting back and playing that type of shell coverage and trying to keep everything underneath you, I just don't think that's what they are. And if you've got the defensive lineman to get up the field, utilize them in that way, because they're going to see more of this down the road, because teams are going to see if you can't stop the run. And the Eagles have given up, what is it, 360 rushing yards for the past 2 weeks? Yeah, it's 360 rushing yards in the past 2 weeks. You're giving up that every week, and in fact, they've not allowed fewer than 100 rushing yards in any game. Lowest is 117. If you're giving up that many ground yards every week, teams are going to keep testing you. So Eagles either better find a solution to this, or this is going to happen again and again.
Well, it happened all preseason. It's happening again. I mean, it seems like the style of play with the linebackers they have is just not conducive to what's going on. And then obviously the penalties. The penalties are just continuing. They had 3 touchdowns called back. Another roughing the penalty passer on Derek Barnett. How do you, people blame coaches all the time. You're an undisciplined team. Is that on the coaching staff? Is this an undisciplined team because of the coaches?
Don Shula, if you would have asked him back in the day, he would have said, yeah. Don Shula would have said, he expected his teams to not make penalties, that he coached it up that we were just not going to have these penalties. I mean, think about it. Devontae Smith going out of bounds. Okay, it's the smallest receiver. They're going to play a certain type of shade against you and try and shove you out of bounds. Well, you need to coach Devontae Smith to be able to not get pushed out of bounds. Same thing happened to Rager. I'm also concerned about special teams. I mentioned that fumble on the kickoff there, and they also had a field goal in the third quarter. They ended up getting the play nullified because there was a offsides penalty on the defense, but they had a field goal where they fumbled the snap. They got the snap down and got the field goal through, but that's 2 big mistakes on special teams, and their special teams have been bad in the first 3 weeks of the season, so they're making mistakes in all the areas. And I think it comes down to when you've got new coaches, a new coordinator on offense, a new defensive coordinator, a new special teams coordinator. When you've got this many people you're trying to break in fact, that probably wasn't a good idea to go this young and have this many young coaches, because there's a lot of mistakes happening and you just don't have enough practice time to correct them all.
All right, Casey joined us here. One thought every game, week 4. We got Monday night tonight. We'll get a preview of that as well. Let's take a look at the schedule. Washington, they go to Atlanta. The Falcons have played the 3 teams in the NFC East. They haven't played Dallas yet. They went 1-2 in this game. Twice they lost at home here, and Washington gets to 2-2.
Washington does get to 2-2, and Heineke, I wrote about him in an article I did for The Athletic today. It's an article I do every Monday that looks at all the fantasy impacts of the game before. And you look at Heineke's numbers, he's doing really good on vertical passes. His yards per attempt are really good. His touchdowns per attempt are really good. He's a very good quarterback. And I think Washington, the funny thing is they only have one really good receiver, and everybody else is kind of an afterthought. So I think Washington's offense is making up for the fact that they've got a bad defense. And actually, the way their offense is playing, they can win shootout games like the Eagles
What happened
can.
to their defense? This was one of the best defenses in the league last year, and they added to it.
They added to it, but they're not covering very well, and teams are testing them in coverage. Their safeties and corners are all not playing well in coverage, and they're not making up for it with the pass rush. So I think they've got more liabilities back there than what people thought coming in the year.
All right, no surprise here. Buffalo 40, Texans nothing. I guess the surprise is you see a 40-0 score in the NFL, but the Bills are that good.
Yeah, they are that good. And actually part of it, though, is that the Texans are just that bad. Davis Mills, their quarterback, I wrote about him in that article as well. Atrocious. You can't even say how bad his numbers are. The Texans need to go to anybody else at quarterback. I think Driscoll's on their roster. They need to go somewhere else because he is so bad that if they go there, it's a shock if they score a touchdown because he can't get anything done. Worst quarterback in the league right now.
One thought every game. Casey Joyner from The Athletic. Let's go to Chicago. They're 2-2. They beat the Lions, who fall to 0-4. Justin Fields gets a victory here in his. I guess this is his second start now.
Yeah, and he looked better, but Detroit is just so bad, and their defense was banked up yesterday. They were missing Trey Flowers, one of their starting linebackers. They just lost in that game Romeo Okwara, their best pass rusher. So now they've lost two starting cornerbacks, their best pass rusher on a team that was already legendarily bad. Chicago, this is a mirage. It was because how bad Detroit was rather than how good Chicago was.
I like that. Legendarily bad. By the way, the Eagles play the Lions coming up in a couple of weeks here. Circle your calendars for that. Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Cowboys 36, Panthers 28. Now, the Panthers had a really good defense. They lost Horn. That obviously affected them here, but the Cowboys, their offense rolls with a big third quarter.
They do, and they can run the ball too. People were saying Zeke is done, and Zeke looked really good yesterday, and he has started to look a lot better. I still think they need to spell him with Pollard. They don't want to make him a pure bell cow in a 17-game season, but they don't have to. Their offensive line's playing well, and their defense is starting to play better. Diggs is making picks all over the place, and he looks like Lester Hayes right now to go old school there, but their defense is playing a lot better, and their defense keeps playing that well. This is a Super Bowl team.
All right, Colts on the road. They beat the Dolphins. Dolphins really struggling. They fall to 1-3. This is like the Eagles draft pick bowl. They had the Colts pick. They had the Dolphins pick. Both those teams 1-3. Carson Wentz 24 of 32, 228, and 2 touchdowns as the Colts pick up their first win of the year.
The Colts looked a lot better. The Dolphins' defense was their pride and joy last year. Their run defense is just bad. It's almost as bad as the Eagles. In fact, it might be worse in some ways. They can't stop anything because they let Jonathan Taylor run all over them. And mind you, the Colts were missing Quentin Nelson. They were starting right tackle. They're a banged-up offensive line as well, and they just leaned on the ground game, and it worked. So the Eagles might want to look at that game plan and say, maybe we should do some of that.
Kind of ugly game, but Cleveland gets to 3-1. They go on the road. They beat the Vikings. Vikings defense has tightened up a little bit, but their offense couldn't get anything going. They lose 14-7.
Yeah, I wrote about it for the Athletic article that one of the things the Browns seem to do is play a lot of tight man coverage. They said, we're going to get up there and press. We're going to disrupt your offense. And Cousins and Vikings receivers did not have an answer for that. I think it's going to be something the teams are going to try and do going forward.
All right, the Giants go on the road. They get their first win of the year, 27-21 in the Dome against the Saints. Tough place to win, and the lowly Giants figured out a way in overtime to beat the Saints, who fall to 2-2.
Saints have one formula. We're going to run the ball. We're going to play good defense. We're going to hope that Jameis doesn't throw an interception on the 20 passes that we have him throw. It works a lot of the time, but the Giants are playing a lot better. Barkley looks very good. The offensive line is playing better. And their defense is not great. It's not a liability. They've got some good players back there, and they were able to stay close in this sort of contest. It's the kind of contest the Giants are going to have to play if they want to win those kind of contests. But the Saints better find a different way to win, because if they go with this formula, get them 10 wins, but they'll be one and done in playoffs.
One thought every game. Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer. Let's go. How did this happen? The Titans, they had a good chance here to get to 3-1. They lost to the Jets 27-24. Oh, boy, how do you lose to the Jets?
Well, it hurts if you don't have both of your top receivers. That and not having A.J. Brown and Julio Jones hurts, but it also hurts when you don't take the game seriously. I think that they said, we're just going to go ahead. We're not going to take this team seriously. And also, they're way too reliant on Derrick Henry. If you look at Derrick Henry's numbers this year, wrote about this for The Athletic as well. If you look at his numbers this year, right now he's on pace to have 627 touches this year. 627. If you take the pace of what he's done over the past 3 weeks and prorate that over the rest of the season plus what he already has, it's just insane. The highest in NFL history is 497. There's no way they can do that. They've got to diversify this offense, and they got to get the receivers back and healthy, or else eventually they're going to wear him out.
All right, Cardinals on the road handle the Rams with ease, 37-20. Cards are 4-0. Rams drop for the first time. They're 3-1. Kyler Murray, 2 touchdowns in the big win. Stafford had a pair as well, but man, I guess the Cardinals are the story here.
The Cardinals are the story, and also their defense is they're not the best defense in the league. They're the most athletic defense in the league. They like to have they know the type of offense that they play, that you're going to have to play a type of high scoring game against them. And they put together a kind of defense that is perfect for that. And also their running game is going. Edmonds and Connor both looked really good yesterday, and they did it against a tough Rams front. So I think the Rams defense, by the way, you lose your defensive coordinator, you lose Brandon Staley over to the Chargers. I think it's starting to show that they're not quite the team they were last year.
Starting to learn more about all these teams, including Seahawks, Niners. Seahawks go on the road. So both the road teams in the NFC West went on the road and won. Seattle 28-21 over the 49ers, and now the 49ers dropped to 2-2. So the Cardinals have a little breathing room over top the bottom 2 teams. It's going to be a very interesting NFC West. I think those teams, but we did see Garoppolo get hurt. You're going to see Trey Lance, I guess, the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they could do with him, because he looked very good on vertical passes, and they've got some things that they want to do with him, but it'll be interesting to see what happens when they try and go plan B there. The 49ers, I mean, they've got Kittle, or they've got Samuel, but Kittle doesn't look very good because he's banged up, and the rest of the receiving core doesn't look that good. And Serban, he's a solid running back for that offense, but you want him as a counter back. You want him as a secondary back, as an alternate back. You don't really want him to have as the guy you're running your offense around, because he's just not good enough.
Big game by Deebo Samuel, by the way, 8 for 156 and 2 touchdowns. I love the way they use him out there. All right. On the road, the Ravens get a big win over Denver. So Denver's first test, they failed. They lose 23-7. They lose at home. They fall to 3-1. Ravens get to 3-1. Huge day for Lamar Jackson.
Huge day for Lamar Jackson. And the Ravens have shown the last 2 weeks, they've been, I do an injury report article for Football Diehards every Friday night and Saturday night for the next day. And they're the team that probably the most injured team in the league right now. When you look at the number of people who they have on their injury report, and not just like the Patriots of old, and the Patriots like throw anybody on there as questionable. These are legitimate questionable injured players, and they're coming out to Denver and playing a very tough Denver defense and doing a very good job of that. So Baltimore's finding a way to win, even though they are banged up. When they get healthy, they're going to be dangerous.
One thought every game, Packers 27-17. The Steelers look like a mess. Obviously, a lot of Roethlisberger questions there. Rodgers had an okay game, 20-36, 2 touchdowns, but I guess the story is really how much the Steelers have declined.
The Steelers have declined. Their defense is not as good as it was in the past. It's not a bad defense, but it's a 10-15. If you're talking in the league, it's not really a top 10 defense anymore. They're not getting kind of pass rush. They have 8 sacks over the past 4 games. That's good, but not great for them. The secondary is not that good. They're running the ball better. That's good, but Roethlisberger doesn't have any verticality to him. And the bad thing about it is I get the sense watching that team that when they started to get down, what was it? Tyler Boyd said the week before that they quit at the end of the game. I got the feeling in the third quarter they were like, we don't think this is working, and they're not buying into what the coach is saying. It could be a very long year in Pittsburgh.
All right, and obviously Ben Roethlisberger looks like he could be at the end of the road. At what point do they decide, hey, let's find out if Haskins is the guy? Sunday Night Football last night, it didn't live up to the hype by any stretch of the imagination. 19-17, a missed 56-yard field goal in the final minute seals the deal as the Buccaneers and Brady get the win. But I left most impressed with the way Mac Jones played.
He did play quite well, doing what they asked him to do. Mind you, the Bucs secondary, they're already missing 2 starting cornerbacks going into that contest. Carlton Davis got injured in the second quarter, so they were down. Their secondary was playing some backups to backups, and not taking anything away from Jones, because again, a rookie quarterback against a very tough front seven, still being able to do that. I got to give them credit, and they went after the weakness of the Patriot or the Buccaneers. So got to give them credit there. But still, Brady playing like he did against the defense that knew how to stop that offense. That was a very good showing by him as well. But yeah, Mac Jones, he's going to be a real good quarterback in the league.
All right, Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Let's look at tonight's Monday Night Football game. It's a good one in the AFC West. Raiders 3-0, Chargers 2-1. I kind of think this Raiders team has been living on the edge here.
They have, and who knows if they're going to have Josh Jacobs. I haven't seen if there's an updated injury report for this evening, but he was very questionable coming in. If they get Peyton Barber in his place, Barber's a plodding runner. He's not terrible, and they've got some good run blockers with him and things. The Raiders have been getting a lot of vertical passes and such. I still don't trust the receiving core a ton. That they're not using Waller a lot. If I'm looking at this on paper, I'm thinking the Chargers are the better team. I do think, though, this will be a game that could easily be a 34-31 contest. I think both these offenses are the kind that could put up a lot of hard scores, but I'm probably taking the Chargers in this one by a small amount.
Should be a fun one. Jacobs is still questionable for that game. You can hear it tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage begins at 7:30. Raiders and Chargers for Monday Night Football. Casey Joyner's back on Friday with one thought on every Week 5 game and the Eagles and the Carolina Panthers. Make sure you check out all of his work at The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer, and follow him on Twitter at KCJoynerTFS. Casey, we'll talk to you Friday.
Appreciate it.
All right, there you go. One thought every game from Casey Joyner here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Don't forget, you can download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Casey Joyner's appearance is brought to you by Cape Regional Health System. For a healthier life, call 609-463-CAPE. Casey's back on Friday's show with one thought on every game. Week 5. A couple quick thoughts for me on this week. Dallas stood out offensively. They're really good, man. I know you hate to hear it. They were 5 in my Find 5 last week. They got to move up the list. They won. Rams lost. I don't remember who was in my Find 5 because I was on remote last week, so I don't have it written down. I'll have to go back and listen. But I know the Cowboys were in there. The Rams were my number 1 team last week. They lost. I think the Bills were my number 2. So what does that tell you? Arizona wasn't in my 5. What does that say? Should be an interesting week. The Cowboys, Buffalo, and I would say the Ravens going on the road, handling Denver's defense. Those were probably the 3 most impressive wins of the week. The most disappointing has got to be Tennessee. That is horrible. Horrible. The Saints, that's a bad loss. You lose at home to the Giants. Come on, dude. And the other one, I guess you got to say the Falcons, even though the Falcons aren't any good, you're losing at home to the Eagles and Washington. Like, how bad are you? All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the app in the Apple Store or Google Play. Don't forget, coming up tonight, it's game night at 6:20. Columnist Martin Frank covers the Eagles. He'll join Josh at 6:20 here on the Sports Bash. Tomorrow, we got a jam-packed show. We'll do a little baseball playoffs tomorrow as well. Red Sox, Yankees. We got that game for you live on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff Nadeau's here tomorrow. Who's in, who's out? I'll give you that tomorrow on the show, plus a Tuesday with Thompson and Rob Monty. That's all coming up on the Tuesday edition. But when we come back here on the Sports Bash, we'll take a look inside the NFC East. It appears to be the Cowboys division. Can Washington keep it close? Can Philly get their act together? Did the Giants find a formula? We'll talk to Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports coming up next. 5:30, driving you home. Sports Bash, live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the app in the Apple Store or Google Play. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. This hour of the Sports Bash, Jeff Kerr is brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar Roofing Solar Guardian. Start your solar journey today. Learn more by visiting espnsolar.com. We'll go into the NFC East with Jeff, a lot of NFL. Monday Night Football tonight. It's Raiders and Chargers, AFC West. We'll have that for you coming up at 7:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you're home for Monday Night Football. I think I kind of like the Chargers tonight. I just like they're at home. I don't know. This Raiders team, I just can't buy into. Like, I feel like they've been like playing with their hair on fire. Like they've been just playing with fire. And there's one of these games I think they just feel like they're just bound for like a clunker to come in, because I got to give Carr credit. He's played really well. They've scored 31 against let's be honest, it's not a good Dolphins team. They beat a bad Steelers team, and that game against the Ravens was kind of wonky. This is the best team they've played probably tonight. Them and the Raiders, the Ravens. But that was like the opening. I don't know. This is the first game. They're on the road. I think they get beat up pretty good tonight. That's my thought on the Monday night game. I go Chargers tonight. The spread is 3. I'll take the Chargers tonight. I mean, I don't love 3, but if you ask me to bet the game, I'll go Chargers tonight with the 3, and I think the Chargers win the game. And I probably think they win it by a touchdown or more. I just like this Chargers team. I need a big game out of Mike Williams tonight. See, I'm in a situation in my fantasy. Mike Williams against Austin Eckler. Now, he's got Eckler, I got Williams, and I'm down by 7. So I'm going to need some volume. I need volume. Mike Williams, volume. Give me some catches there, Mike Williams. That's my big play right there. I need Mike Williams, volume catches tonight, maybe a touchy boo or 2. I need to keep Eckler out of the end zone. See, Eckler's a guy who gets a lot of catches too. So I'll be watching that game with a lot of interest tonight, because I got the mano y mano. Boom. By the way, Michael Kendricks, unsigned free agent linebacker. Somebody asked me about Michael Kendricks. He signed with the 49ers in August. He got waived on an injury settlement. He has been meeting with the 49ers. If I'm the Eagles, there's 2 linebackers on the open market right now that are better than both of your guys. Collins got released last week. I didn't see if anybody signed him over the weekend. But Kendricks, the problem with Kendricks is he is not a run-stuffing linebacker. He does not stop the run. He would be a better version of Eric Wilson, you know? So I don't know that Kendricks helps you out too much, but Collins definitely helps you out. He's better than what you got on both guys. I mean, Singleton is a nice player. He tries really hard. It's not like it's not Geary, where Geary just sucked, right? Geary just sucked. Singleton at least gives you effort. He tries. He's in there. I mean, he's always at the top of the list of tackles at the end of the day. And that's all you can really ask for is, look, I get it. You're just not good enough. It's not like Geary. Geary had no business playing. Singleton has business playing. He just average. The Eagles just don't address that position. The game last night, I will say this. I couldn't even watch the thing. It was like all the hype with the Brady and the Bucks and all that stuff. Are the Bucks like not good? What's going on with them? Like, they should have kicked the crap out of that team. I mean, I will say this. They played hard last night. I mean, you could tell the Patriots players felt that there was something there, right? They felt there was like this was a big deal. So I'll give them credit. They played well last night. The Patriots did. They just seemed like they played harder, and Tampa Bay was still better than them. All right, Jeff Kerr is here. Let's go to that and see what's going on throughout the NFC East here as he joins us right now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, Jeff Kerr?
Hey, Mike. Tough Eagles game yesterday, but, and look, I've been ripping the defense too, but I watch the Chiefs every week. They do this to everybody. So if you want a silver lining, Patrick Mahomes pretty much does this every single week. It's just Eagles fans really only watch him when he's on Sunday Night Football or in the Super Bowl.
Well, I was going to say, you give up 42. It's the second week in a row you give up 40. You're leaving discouraged. But I guess you look back and say, look, Kansas City's just better than you are. That's at this point of where you are, Kansas City's better. Are you encouraged after watching that game at all?
By Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, yes, I am. I wanted to see Jalen Hurts bounce back. I wanted to see Nick Sirianni coach a better game. I got at least one of the two, but I thought Nick Sirianni was better than he was the week before. And I think he stopped all the rah-rah pandering stuff. I just think Nick Sirianni kind of took a step back a bit and said, look, what can I do to beat this football team? And I thought he called an excellent game in the red zone. Penalties killed him. I mean, honestly, that's Nick Sirianni's biggest weakness right now. 9 penalties yesterday. They had 8 points taken off the board because of penalties. I mean, they were in this game, Mike. They really were. Offensively, you could say they were in this game. The Andre Dillard and the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside penalty. And I know Eagles fans and some Eagles media want to argue this till they bled yesterday. That was a penalty on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. That always will be called a penalty.
Oh, yeah. No, the arms are extended out there. My question is, why is he on the field in that situation? I mean, come on. It's like you're having him out there to do one thing, so you know it's coming. And the defensive player, I thought, did a good job of drawing that penalty.
I think he did too. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, if he just runs a route, that's not a penalty. Well, he wasn't running a route. You could easily tell what he was doing. It was basically a pick play. And I agree with you, Mike. Why is he on the field? Why is he on the team? J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Greg Ward, they're two guys. Like I like Greg Ward. Don't get me wrong. I just don't understand why he's on this roster. You know why they're on this roster? Because the Eagles aren't that good. This is a transition year, rebuilding year, whatever you want to call it. But there is one thing I do know, Mike. It looks like Jalen Hurts is going to be all right. After his worst game of his career, I agree with Sirianni. This was the best game of his young career. It wasn't a win, but it still was a really good game.
Yeah, oddly, Greg Ward has 2 touchdown catches for you. I mean, it's still the one guy that seems to be sure-handed, dependable, yada, yada, yada. I thought the offense as a whole, you scored 30 points at home. I mean, most weeks you feel like you got to win that game. You're playing Kansas City, so I get it. Your defense was having some issues. Here's the thing. Jonathan Gannon, he's in a tough spot. He's calling his defense, and he doesn't have personnel to fit his defense.
Yeah, that's the thing. I remember, I think it was Chip Kelly's first year when Billy Davis was there. Remember, they were switching everybody up from 4-3 to 3-4, Sean McDermott and Juan Castillo's defense. And, it was pretty much, okay, now we're putting Brandon Graham in awkward situations and Fletcher Cox lining up in a certain technique. And you just didn't have the personnel to run what you wanted. And I kind of feel like that with this team, except you're not signing guys to multi-year deals. Like, you don't have Kerry Williams on a multi-year deal. You don't have this player on a loan deal. You have Eric Wilson on a 1-year deal, and Alex Singleton's basically cheap. Let's wait till the draft to see what type of players they can bring in here. They just don't have tackling linebackers much. I think this defense does work. They just don't have tackling linebacker. Nelson's on a 1-year deal. Let's wait and see when he gets his guys in here.
All right, that's the question. That's the question. Is his scheme okay? Is it that he just doesn't have the talent? Because people are like, hey, this guy's in over his head. Is John Gannon in over his head, or does he not have the talent?
It's funny because everybody wanted to rag on Jim Schwartz and how bad of a defensive coordinator he was.
Don't put me in that category.
Are you in that? I didn't know that.
I had no problem with Jim Schwartz.
All right. So, this
or
is
Gabe Kapler, for that matter, just for the record.
This is an interesting stat, Mike. Jim Schwartz only allowed 1 40-point game in his 5 years with the Eagles. Jonathan Gannon's already allowed 2 and 4. I don't think Gannon's a bad coach by any means. I definitely think it's the players. You got a lot of Schwartz holdovers, and you got a lot of guys that you're trying to find out about. Alex Singleton's one of those guys. Look, the guy makes a lot of tackles. He also gets beat for a lot, too. Fletcher Cox, your $20 million defensive tackle, is just nowhere to be found. I don't even know if he's going to be part of this team next year.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, Fletcher Cox is obviously, it looks like people are wondering, okay, he's not putting up the stats. Is he not productive? Is he getting old? Our teams, I look at it as this. He's been doubled a lot. I feel like teams are still watching the tape and saying, if we're game planning against the Eagles, they're playing their safeties 15 yards off the ball. I mean, I joke, but about 10.
About that.
Their linebackers can't tackle. So if I'm game planning the Eagles, I'm saying I got to double that guy because he's the only guy that can do anything to blow up our run game, and it's working.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you have to do. Look, Fletcher Cox is still a force, but you're right. It is the lack of stats. The problem is you're paying a guy a lot of money, so he's going to get criticized. Same with Darius Slay. His nickname is Big Play Slay. He does make big plays, but when you're only targeted 4 times in a football game, how are you supposed to make these plays? And look, I hated the tweet Slay put out. I hate athletes that do that. Well, I played well yesterday and I did it. That's basically what he was implying. I'm like, okay, he's probably right, though. I think he did have a good game just at first glance. I rewatched the game. I'm like, yeah, I think he is right. And then, when the stats came out today, I'm like, yeah, he was. And, that's why I didn't want to criticize him so quick. I just hate that attitude. No disrespect to Darius Slay, but there's a reason why he's been on teams that have never won a playoff game.
Yeah, the whole Darius Slay thing, obviously he puts out, hey, no, they're not beating me. And he mentioned it yesterday. He was asked about the scheme and a new coach. And he said, yeah, of course, it's going to take us a little while, but we got to start getting this. The problem is they don't have the personnel to get this scheme. That's their issue.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They just don't have the talent right now. And we kind of knew that going into the year. It's like people notice, and then they seem surprised when the results actually happen. I'm like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Well, the beat reporter said this to train camp. No, they said Jonathan Gannon's a good coach who has a pretty good scheme. But, if you listen to, our buddy, John McMullen, he said the Eagles linebackers have been bad all training camp. They're not as good, or they're not as good as the fans are making them out to be. And he was right. It's again, and he's not the only beat writer I've heard that from. It's people have been writing about this stuff all year. It's just people choose what they want to hear. And look, the reality of the situation is this defense is probably going to play better next week because Carolina just isn't Dallas and they're not Kansas City. And then Tampa Bay will probably, beat the snot out of them. But,
well, that's what it comes down to, Jeff. For me, Dallas is just flat out better than they are. Kansas City's flat out better than they are. You were competitive with San Francisco. My thing is, can you be competitive with the upcoming schedule? You should be able to be competitive with Carolina, probably not Tampa Bay, Vegas, Detroit, the Chargers, Denver, the Saints, the Giants, the Jets. You should be – I'm not saying you should win all those games, but you should be able to compete with them. And if you're competing, you have a shot to win the game. You're just not better than Kansas City. You're not better than Dallas. As much as Eagle fan, Dallas is just flat out better than you are right now. And you were competitive with San Francisco. You should be competitive with every team on this schedule other than Tampa Bay.
Yeah, exactly. And this is how I look at it, Mike. I thought they were competitive for a lot of the game against Kansas City yesterday. Not defensively, but
they were more competitive yesterday than they were against Dallas.
Exactly. I never thought the Eagles were going to win the game, but there was always something in the back of my mind saying, you know what? If they can just get a turnover, if they can actually stop them once, they're moving the ball down the field. And look, if they score in the red zone and don't have penalties, it may be a 42-40 game.
Yeah.
Just don't know.
Let's go inside the NFC East real fast. Let's go to the Cowboys. They scored 36 on that Panther defense, which had been really good. And, the Panthers, I thought, did a good job. Darnold had over 300. He's pretty efficient. But Elliott, 143. This Cowboys team's legit.
And Pollard at 72. It's funny. I said when Dallas beat the Chargers a couple weeks ago, man, what a novel concept. Give the ball to Zeke, give the ball to Tony Pollard, and you're going to score points and you're going to win games. You don't need to have Dak Prescott throw the ball 50 times a game to win. And, even Dak ran the football a little bit yesterday. This Cowboys team is for real, Mike. It's fine. My colleague Pat Walker at CBS said, and, he's our Cowboys expert here. And I tend to listen to him when he says some stuff. And, he can be a homer at times, but when they lost to Tampa, he goes, you know what, Jeff? I wouldn't be shocked they won 6, 7, 8 in a row just based on the schedule. And I'm like, okay, we'll probably lose 1 or 2. I'm starting to think that's legit. They're
very good. They got weapons. The kid Parsons is a difference maker. Diggs has been great. Their secondary was a mess last year. He's helped out there, and Parsons has been outstanding. So there's no question. My question, I guess, is who's number 2? Washington went on the road. They got a win. They're 2-2. Heineke had a pretty good game yesterday, but I don't look at Washington. What has happened to their defense?
Their defense is terrible. I never would have suspected this.
No.
Look, this is the same Atlanta Falcons team that couldn't get 10 off the Eagles. And Washington, Cordell Patterson, 3 touchdowns yesterday. What's up with that? I got a trade offer in fantasy for Cordell Patterson. I'm like, I don't want him. He stinks. Come on. Stop trying to oversell me here. The Falcons aren't a good team. Oh, by the way, since you're going to lead into this, the Giants aren't a good team either. I don't know how they beat the Saints.
Yeah, what happens? You go on the road, you beat the Saints. I mean, hey, look, Daniel Jones, 400 yards. Give it to him there. I mean, they finally got the offense clicking a little bit.
Daniel Jones is not the problem with the New York Giants. I've been saying that.
Their line stinks.
Yeah, exactly. Their line stinks. Their defense was better yesterday. But again, what is the Saints up? They're not much. I mean, it's what, Taysom Hill? That's like their red zone threat. They don't use Alvin Kamara the way they should. I don't think Jameis Winston's gotten any better at all. And look, the Saints, Malcolm Jenkins said this last week. I was in on a Saints press conference, and he said this. I think it's cool our identity is defense now because we've been a good defensive team for a couple years, but it's always been the Sean Payton, Drew Brees show. Well, guess what? You had your chance to be a defensive identity. You were shutting down the Giants, and then all of a sudden, Daniel Jones was a pass to Saquon Barkley on the wheel route, and it was it. Like, you were up 21-10 with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you couldn't seal the deal.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. And, of course, don't forget tonight we got Monday Night Football. I like the Chargers tonight.
I do, too. You know what? Justin Herbert's a real deal, Mike. I'll tell you what, I'm really excited for this game. Between Herbert and Carr, I think Carr's going to go off again, too. I do like the Chargers because they're at home, but part of me still loves John Gruden.
Come on. I'm not.
Come on, back from the States of Phil. Mike, you know the greatest stat I ever have is before the season, right? Do you remember me tweeting it?
You tweet out a bunch of them, man.
Okay, so this is my favorite one. I did in April, and I rehashed it. Before the season started, John Gruden, in 7 years with the Raiders, 57-55. 7 years with the Bucks, 57-55. I'm like, this is beautiful.
Yeah,
what a stat.
I feel that Gruden is the most overrated coach maybe in history. So, and I like the fact that he has struggled with Oakland. I don't want to see them do good because I want them to stay mediocre. Jeff Kerr,
he paid a lot of money to be mediocre. I will say that.
Yes, 10-year deal to be mediocre. I'll take that deal all the time. Yep. Jeff Kerr, although people feel like maybe I am too mediocre or maybe not even that good. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. He's back on Wednesday. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep, sounds great, Mike. Thanks for having me on once again.
Yeah, as always, Jeff Kerr here is brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar and Roofing and Solar Guardians. Start your solar journey today. Learn more. Go to espnsolar.com. All right, we'll wrap up the show on the other side. Josh has game night tonight. Martin Frank is on. Baseball tomorrow. I'm really into these playoffs, I think. You know what it is? I went to Fenway Park, and now I feel like baseball is like the greatest thing ever again. You go to Fenway Park, you feel different. You go to Citizens Bank Park, and you feel like nobody cares. Go to Fenway Park, your love for baseball will come back. Sixers tonight, no Harris, no Embiid. A couple other guys are out. Ben Simmons isn't playing either. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. I can dig it. I can dig it. I can dig it. About ready to end the show before we get on out of here. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. And don't forget, you can always download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. Let's look back at some of the moments from yesterday, including this one. Yep, not good, not good. Yeah, the sack and then illegal contact. And then there was this one. Yeah, it's always him. Derek Barnett again called for roughing the passer. It was kind of a weak penalty, but hey, it's always him. How about this one? Yeah, automatic first down, half the distance of the goal. The problem is you couldn't convert in the red zone. That was an offsetting penalty there. They got called back. Oh, we've got more. As heard yesterday on the Eagles radio network. Oh, man. It was just a ugly game with penalties, shooting yourself in the foot. You know, you expect to lose to Kansas City. But if you just played a cleaner, tighter game, who knows what would have happened in that game? That's our show for today. Great stuff, as always, from everybody out there on a Monday. Good reaction, some irrational stuff. But for the most part, I think most people saw what I saw. You're just not ready to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. What I want to see is improvement. I want to see you start competing against the rest of this schedule. I see really two definitive losses on this schedule. Tampa Bay and Dallas. Those two teams are definitively better than you right now. Everybody else, I'm not saying you should win or going to be a favorite. You should compete the rest of the way. That is progress. That's what this team needs, progress. They need to clean up the damn penalties. Because if you do, you might just upset some of these teams because you're good enough to do it. Josh says game night coming up next. I'm Mike Gill. I'll be back tomorrow.